ADDICTS. Like, hey, Scoob, did you hear Nikki Blake is hosting a Scooby-Doo panel? No. Yeah. Like on today's Scooby-Doo episode, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy meet Nikki Blake. Yeah, in a Scooby Panel. Like, we need to get this puppy started. Okay, Nikki Blake, take it away, Scooby-Doo.
Welcome to the Scooby Panel. I'm Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com, and today we'll be talking about the scariest villains of Scooby-Doo. And before we get started, I'd like to have everybody introduce themselves. So Cameron, let's start with you.
Hey guys, I'm Cameron Bates. I run Scooby-Doo and Cameron Too, and I'm a big Scooby fan, a big Scooby-Doo collector, and I'm a co-host here on this panel, so I'm excited to be here tonight.
Alex?
Hey everybody, my name is Alex. I run the Scooby News page on Instagram. I'm a fan from Greece, and this is my very first panel, so I'm way too excited, and I can't wait to talk with you guys.
We're excited to have you. Thank you for being here. Wendy?
Thanks for asking me.
Hi guys, I'm Wendy BRYDGE. I'm a commission artist, a blogger, and a 30-plus year Scooby-Doo collector.
And Devin?
Hi, I'm Devin Smith. I am a miniature artist. I run a business where I sell my art called Awesome Thanks. I don't have a Scooby-Doo page or anything like that, but I have been a lifelong Scooby-Doo fan, and this, just like Alex, this is my first panel too. So I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you too.
Thank you.
So we are going to get started, and our first topic is, what were the scariest villains for you, and why did you find them to be so scary? Alex, let's start with you.
Okay, the very first scary villain that pops in my head is definitely Gramps the Vamp from the Scooby-Doo show, Season 2, Vampire Bats and Scaredy Cats. It was one of those episodes that has a really dark atmosphere, you know, and just the way the vampire is hissing and threatening, says, I want blood and all that. I think it's one of the darkest and creepiest episodes in general, and one of the creepiest vampires in general, like across the whole franchise.
I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
I wrote a whole list. I went through every villain that's ever been in Scooby-Doo, and I was like, I have to write down every one that I think is scary. And he for sure made the list, because like when the phone rings and like the bell and kissing, and it's like on an island, and it's just all the coffins, super spooky.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Wendy, what about you?
Yeah, not surprising. Gramps the Vamp topped my list as well. He is definitely a very scary villain. Back in 2016, there was a bit of a trend going around where people were talking about the scariest villains on Scooby-Doo and stuff, and I wanted to join in, but I did want to make it a little bit different. So I actually did a blog post that was the 10 scariest episodes, which for all intents and purposes is almost the same as what my top 10 scary villains would be, but the order's like a little bit different. But yeah, Vampire Bats and Scaredy Cats was the top of my list for the scariest episode of Scooby-Doo for sure. And that vampire is just, I don't know what it is about him. They really nailed the makeup, like the face look with the evil eyebrows and just all those angles and stuff. Mm-hmm. He is definitely very scary, which if I think about it in the abstract, he doesn't have the scariest voice, because it is like a little high pitched, you know, but somehow that probably adds to the spookiness, even though if you tried to look at it separately, it maybe would seem not as scary. But no, it all comes together in this perfect little storm for a very spooky episode, and he is a very scary villain. But second, really close for me, is the Night Ghoul of Wonderworld from Scooby-Doo and Scrappy. That episode is like my number 2 favorite Scooby episode of all time, and that Night Ghoul is so freaky. He has definitely the more quintessential scary voice for me, and he's so gaunt. Like, ghoul was the right word for him. He is a ghoul, and he is very scary. And the fact that he just doesn't even care that Scrappy's around. You know, I feel like sometimes the villains maybe they're not, but I like to think they're a little intimidated by Scrappy. The Night Ghoul doesn't care. He's like, oh, stupid little dog, get in this case. You know, I'm going to steal the crown jewels and you're going in the box. And he's just very, very spooky, especially when you discover that he's not actually just a robot, that there's a real night ghoul. And that just takes it over the top for me. So yeah, Gramps the Vamp and the Night Ghoul, top of my list for the scariest villains out of all the series, in my opinion.
I had never actually thought about the Night Ghoul so much. It's a great episode, of course. But now that you mention it, yeah, especially after the Night Ghoul robot goes haywire and the eyes start glowing red and he's, on a rampage and everything. I think that was really scary, actually, now that I think of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Cameron, what about you?
Well, I think everybody took my answer. But I'm going to have to go, and I know it's going to sound repetitive, but it's because it's my favorite episode. I would have to say Gramps the Vamp too. And the reason I say that is because just the way they designed him. I mean, the pointy ears. I mean, and we see a lot of vampires in Scooby-Doo, but the one scene that scares the hell out of me from even when I was a kid to even to this day is when he picks up the phone and his mouth is open. You see the full teeth, the eyes are glaring, the moonlight shining down him. Holy crap. I still get goosebumps watching that episode to this day. But a lot of people don't realize that there's two versions of Vampire Bats and Scaredy Cats. There's one that's kind of newer looking, and then there's one from the old VHS. And let me tell y'all something. The one from the old VHS, if you go look up on Google Vampire Bats and Scaredy Cats comparison, just type in Vampire Bats and Scaredy Cats comparison, it'll show you the old VHS to the new remastered color one. Oh my God, it's scary. It's just terrifying. And I don't know. It's the mystery, the I don't know, just how it's on, Skull Island. I mean, it's just such a dark episode, and I love it. It's actually my top favorite episode of Scooby-Doo. I don't know, just the pale skin, him running around. I mean, just the mystery itself. I mean, it's terrifying. I mean, and I'm 23 years old, and it still terrifies me. And I'm shocked I say that episode because I'm more terrified of the werewolves. I think they've done a good job. I think another scary villain, because I got two more. Another scary villain I think is Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Werewolf. The green skin and him howling. I actually watched the episode last night and I just thought, wow, like that's actually a really creepy episode. They go to the graveyard, they see it's Silas Long, and Velma says, well, it's wolves have, 4 legs, but this one has 2, and I don't know. It's just like a really, really dark episode. And it's one of the original Where Are You episodes. I love that. And I think the third scariest one for me is the Woodsman from Scooby-Doo Scooby-Doo Camp Scare. And I don't know, something about the Woodsman, just very dark. It was a very dark movie. I loved it. I kind of got a lot of Friday the 13th, episode, vibes from that movie. I will say I've really enjoyed them kind of taking the darker tone. Kind of like the Werecats in Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. Those are freaking terrifying. But I've talked to a lot of people that had their hands dipped in Scooby-Doo and over the years, and I've been very blessed to talk to them. But I appreciate that they've all said, we've balanced light and dark with Scooby-Doo. And I think if you can do that with a cartoon and you could still, send, chilling, vibes down people's spines, I think you're doing a fantastic job. Like I said, I think those are my 3 top villains. I mean, if I watch those episodes or that movie, I mean, I don't watch them at night. I try not to watch. I need to watch them during the daytime with people around me, especially Vampire Bats and Scaredy Cats. And I think Wendy can agree with me on that one.
Yeah, 100%.
It seems like we all have that one on our list because he definitely made my list too.
Absolutely.
Alex, do you have anybody else on your list?
I would like to, depart from the classics era and go to the more modern cartoons. I would like to talk about the Mummy of Friar Sarah from Mystery Incorporated. It was the season 2 episode Theater of Doom. I liked that he didn't actually look like a real mummy. He's not the traditional mummy with the bandages and the moaning and all that. He actually looks more like a zombie or, a corpse that has come alive. Okay, that's a zombie. And he's got this eerie green glow and he can fly, he can appear, he can disappear. You never know in which scenes it was, the real ghost or it was George Avocados. And just the whole threatening, the intimidating appearance. He's threatening the gang about Nibiru and how Nibiru is coming, and his voice is so heavy. It actually really fits his whole aesthetic, his whole animation, and especially this last scene where he comes alive once again from the coffin, and he warns the gang about Nibiru, and he talks to them about the past and how Porto actually helped destroy Crystal Cove and not save it. And then he threatens that Scooby has to die and all that. I think this is one of the scariest episodes of the whole series, maybe the whole franchise even.
Devin, what about you? You have a whole list, you said?
I do have a whole list. If you want me to, I won't read all of them to
no,
spare
it's
you.
fine.
But I will say that Cameron stole the Woodsman, the Werecat, and also Gramps the Vamp, as everyone said. I would say a newfound kind of scary one for me, which in my opinion, Where Are You is like the scariest series, just because of like the lack of like background characters and like how dark everything is all the time. The art is just, it's so scary. But the Puppet Master from the Backstage Rage, just because they like go into this little building and it's just the gang and this like one guy, and he's like, he almost looks just like a guy with a hat on and like a cape, you know what I mean? And like there's that scene where Scooby and Shaggy are like trying on the costumes and stuff, and then he's just like standing there with the cape like in front of his face, and like Shaggy's dressed the same and Scooby's like, and then he doesn't say anything, and he's just like in the shadows the whole time. Super scary. That's like, I would say that's like my newfound, I'm like, he's pretty scary. Like that episode's pretty creepy. So I would say that one. And then also from Where Are You? I feel like the Wax Phantom is a little scary just because he's so huge. And it's one of those episodes that like, as a kid, I didn't see as much as the rest of them. And I don't know if they just like didn't air it as much or if it wasn't on like as many like VHSs and DVDs and stuff like that. So like, I just didn't see it. But like, he's got a pretty creepy vibe too, I would say. But, oh, another one. I thought about this yesterday too. The 10,000 Volt Ghost from the second live action movie is horrifying. Because he's huge. He's literally like actually scary. Like he's big, and the way he like goes through like all the like electric outlets and stuff, like, I don't know, that's pretty scary. My opinion.
I think that generally in the second live action movie, they took all the classic monsters and like updated them. They took them to the top. They took the 10,000 Volt Ghost and they made him huge, and he can move through the power outlets, as you said. Captain Cutler had what was it? A harpoon. What was it?
Yeah.
And the Minor 49 can like breathe fire. They took Black Knight has a freaking horse. I mean, they took all the monsters and upgraded them to a great extent.
I agree.
Yeah, they definitely did. So I had the zombies from Zombie Island because they freaked me out. But then, of course, by the end, you feel bad for them.
Right.
And the cicadas from When the Cicada Calls from Mystery Inc. No, the cicadas in Courage and Scooby and Courage were not that scary.
They weren't scary. I was about to say, I was like, you were scared of those? I was like, they're not that bad.
But the cicadas in When the Cicada Calls in Mystery Inc. freaked me out. Like they came out of the shower drain and they just kind of came out of nowhere. And I don't know, anything that comes out of the shower drain is just not cool. So yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Especially if it's freaking bugs.
Yeah.
Cover your whole body. Yeah.
Yeah. Bugs really freak me out. So I had a hard time with them. And then other than that, the vampire from Vampire Bats and Scaredy Cats. I really think that he's probably on most people's list.
Yeah.
So if you guys looked at the list that I sent you, there were a few articles that were written about some of the scariest villains. And it seemed like some of them had a lot of the same villains. And then there was one article that was kind of like way off from everybody else.
Yeah.
But they pretty much had the Phantom Virus from Cyber Chase and Revolta and the Mirror Monster from School.
Yeah, he was freaky.
Mr. Hyde, the Tar Monster, the Werecats, the Zombies, and the Ghost Clown.
Yep.
So they all pretty much had that in common. And then it kind of went off. Some that I felt didn't make any sense. But how did you guys feel about the list that I sent you? And Devin, I'll start with you.
I kind of felt like, to be honest, I feel like one person made one of the lists, and then people were like, oh, what should I do a list on? And then they just kind of looked at the other lists, and instead of like actually like looking at Scooby-Doo episodes or movies, and they're like, oh, they said they're scary, so I'll also say they're scary. Because it's very odd that like at least 3 people generally had the same list. So it's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, we all had Gramps the Vamp and stuff, but I'm sure if we like expanded our list, they'd be a bit different, you know what I mean? And not all the exact same thing. So that's my thought personally. But I do agree that, yeah, some of them are pretty scary. I agree. Half of them at least made my list, so.
I kind of felt the same way, that it did seem like they just kind of all, one person, like you said, one person made the list, and then people were like, oh, I'll just put them in a different order, but I'm going to use the same villains.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Cameron, what were your thoughts on the list?
I thought they had some great villains on there. You know, like you said, the mirror monster from Ghoul School. I remember that scared me as a kid. You know, the alternate version of Shaggy. Also, too, you know, this Phantom Virus. You know, the Phantom Virus. I mean, Cyber Chase is my absolute favorite Scooby-Doo movie. So he scared me. You know, the Headless Horseman. You know, I agree. You know, everybody's going to have different villains. It's just honestly which villain scares you the most, you know, and everybody's like, oh, well, that villain was scary. And it's like, well, you know, well, not to me, was it? But this one was scary. You know what I mean? So I saw the list. I felt like some of them were kind of a little bit copied. You know, I felt like, you know, people were just like, oh, yeah. And then they're like, I'm going to take these. No, I feel like, you know, there were some great villains on there. But like I said, I feel like everybody has different lists and stuff like that. You know, when you go through and watch these Scooby-Doo episodes, I mean, you know, there's some episodes where, I mean, I think everybody can generally agree that, you know, you look at Charlie the Haunted Robot, you know, he's really not a scary robot. He's just a regular robot running around Funland. You know, I think everybody can agree with that, you know, and then there's some villains that are just super scary, like Gramps the Vamp, and everybody's like, yeah, I can, because I mean, in the Scooby community, he's talked about like a lot, especially when Halloween rolled around. But, you know, yeah, like I said, I think it was a good list. I think there's some villains on there that, you know, are not as terrifying. But, you know, I will say, I think that over the years, Scooby-Doo has kept that kind of scary vibe. I feel like more of the older stuff, kind of like Where Are You, the Scooby-Doo show, kind of some of the older movies kind of give off some of those creepier, it's kind of like what was said, you know, a little bit earlier was, you know, that the, you know, Where Are You was kind of, you know, kind of the more spookier series. You know, I think Devin, you said that, wasn't that correct? That the Where, yeah. I think that too. I mean, you go, I mean, and Wendy and Nikki, you have both said it before that, you know, the older, you know, episodes, they kind of got that, you know, that creepy, you know, nostalgic vibe to them. And I mean, and the artwork is incredible, but it's dark art. You know what I mean? It's kind of that dark art to it. And, you know, like I said, I think all of us, Alex, I know you post a lot on your page about the classic episodes. I do too. I think we're all kind of biased that the older stuff kind of has the scarier stuff to us. You know what I mean? So I feel like from the list, I felt like they kind of captured a lot of those older villains, which are scary when you stop and think about it. Another one that pops into my mind is that, oh God, he scared me so much that I make a beeline from that feline, that cat creature. Yeah. Holy crap. And there's one scene from that episode where it's actually a higher quality, where Scooby and him are in the elevator and the lightning striking, and he has like claw, like going at Scooby. Oh my God. It's, you know, so I mean, we all may have differing views and opinions on which villains are scary, but man, I mean, some of those that they got from the list that you sent, Nikki, yeah, I would say, I would agree that most of them are pretty terrifying.
Alex, what were your thoughts on the list?
I just think that when people want to talk about the scary Scooby-Doo villains, okay, of course, the classic episodes tend to be more scary, darker, like Cam said, but they don't always look to the newer stuff. Like Mr. Incorporated, I think has some seriously scary villains. Like I said, the Mummy of Friar Sarah. What else? The creeping creatures, the Gator people were really creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, this whole episode was very freaky. And I think they go for the biased maybe opinions, or for the more mainstream. Like, okay, Spooky Space Cook, for example, is a scary villain. Like, he had the creepy laugh and everything. But it's getting a little tiring to see him in everybody's list. I mean, there had to be some scarier villains. I was surprised to see Revolta. Okay, she wasn't that creepy. I thought the Mirror Monster was like way freakier. You know, like Cameron said, the alternate version of Shaggy with the teeth, the ears, and all that. But yeah, I think people should look at the newer stuff. I mean, even Be Cool has some, okay, a little creepier villains. The art style is a little more silly, so that doesn't help. But there are some villains, like, for example, the Ghost of Mother. That's actually very creepy. Yeah.
I agree. That episode is pretty scary. The hotel one, right? Is that the one you're talking about? Yeah, that one's pretty creepy.
Yeah. The whole psycho vibes, Hitchcock, it was great.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I think the whole Mystery Incorporated series was just terrifying. If we really are, we're really going to break it down. I mean, honestly, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, all the series were good, but if we're talking about the scariest one, I mean, of course, Where Are You tops my list, but yeah, I mean, Mystery Incorporated, holy crap. I mean, they went, and even too, I mean, Scooby-Doo and Guess Who, they got some, I mean, you look at some of those designs those writers do and the animators do I mean, I know that the villains kind of act goofy on the Scooby-Doo and Guess Who, but man, some of the artwork design they designed for some of these, I'm like, holy crap, like they're a little freaky.
Wendy, what are your thoughts on the articles that I sent?
I'm going to admit, I was a little bit disappointed because I looked at them and I was like, these would not even come close to being in like even my top 25. Somebody explain to me what the heck is scary about the tar monster, okay? The only tar monster that is terrifying is the tar monster that is in the Super Nintendo video game. He is scary, but that is a completely different story. Like the context is totally different. You know, he's haunting Dean Drabwell's ranch. He's not, you know, in the city of Byzantius. It's completely different. So that tar monster was scary, but this other tar monster, to me, there was like zero scary about him at all. I kind of enjoy him as a villain, but I'm not gonna have nightmares. Like,
what about from the live action, the Monsters Unleashed? What about that tar monster?
Well, yeah, as soon as you make them live action like that, I mean, I feel like it's really hard to screw that up. If you're going for scary, taking like a cartoon version and making it real, I feel like you'd have to try to make it bad rather than try to make it good. So yeah, of course, all like pretty much every villain that they live actioned for sure is scary. Like there's no question about it. Like definitely. Right. I was actually also surprised to see, like, I know a lot of people are afraid of clowns, myself included. I mean, somehow I managed to watch Killer Clowns from Outer Space when I was like 7 years old, and it was a problem. But even so, Bedlam in the Big Top, to me, that clown, the ghost clown, is not really that scary. The clown from the Crazy Carnival Caper in the new Scooby Mysteries, that clown is terrifying. Okay, he was definitely way more scary than the one from the classic series. So I was a little bit surprised. And like Alex said, Revolta, she's a creepy looking monster, you know, for sure. I love her design, but I wouldn't say she was scary. And somebody even had the Creeper on their list. Like, Creeper's almost as cute as Scrappy, just in the evil sense. Okay? He's not scary at all. If I went outside right now and the Creeper crawled out of my garden, I wouldn't run in the house. I would be like, what are you? Come here so I can see you because you're really cute. That's what would happen. I'd be like, come closer so I can take a good look at you. You're a cute little thing. Maybe I'll keep you. You know?
I would only ask
You're very own
he's like a sick old man. I'm like, you're green. Are you okay? Like, you're in a business suit. Are you all right? Like, why are you standing in the woods?
In a business suit.
Like, what are you doing? Cute.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
Oh.
that. Oh, yeah. I don't know. I was disappointed to see so many repeats and ones that I just personally didn't think were like. There's way scarier things that you could. I mean, even Carlotta the Gypsy is scarier than Revolta. You know, and she has like 1 or 2 scenes, and it's nothing, and she's terrifying. So yeah. So I didn't much care. Like I've always said I'm a Scooby snob, so I definitely have opinions that don't often jive with other people, and I don't care. But I was a little disappointed in the list. I was like, I don't think you guys tried very hard.
No.
I agree with you. When I looked at the list, especially the one that was totally different than the other 3,
Yes.
it didn't make sense to me. Like the minor 49er, how is he scary? You know, the headless horseman, no, he's not really scary.
Not really,
you know,
no.
the Charlie the robot's not scary. The Ghost of Vasquez Castle, the Space Coop, like I'm like, where did they get these from? And did they just go with Where Are You to get their list? It just didn't make any sense.
They probably just Googled Scooby-Doo villains and then just like oh okay, I'm just gonna take these and like throw them.
And the top 10 that came up, they just put them in their list.
And it's kind of a list for the everyday Scooby-Doo watcher, not necessarily like the super fans or whatever too. So it's like you kind of want to include villains that everyone is gonna know, and that's usually like Where Are You in some of the movies. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like
yeah.
Unfortunately.
So let's talk about the series that has the scariest villains. To me, that is definitely Mystery Incorporated. Some of the the Freak of Crystal Cove is terrifying. Like he definitely made my list. He is creepy. Alice May, she's creepy, you know? I think a lot of the villains in that series are just so out there, and it makes sense because the series is a lot darker. Cameron, what are your thoughts on the Scariest series with the villains?
I'm gonna agree with you. I think Mystery Incorporated just, man, they went full dark on that. I mean, all this the designs, and to me, it kind of like took kind of some paranormal stuff from like these new scary movies nowadays. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of these new scary movies nowadays. I love the older classic. I'm like Wendy. I love the older horror movies just because, you know, to me, like, I don't know, to me, that's just scarier. But to me, the Mystery Incorporated ones took like, you know, kind of like the Grudge and, you know, the Conjuring and kind of threw them into these villains. I mean, that's my personal opinion. Because some of them, I mean, my God, like Alex said, the Gator people, holy crap, that episode scared me. The hotel one where they dressed up, you know, in their winter outfits and they went to the hotel, you know, that was terrifying. The Freak of Crystal Cove, you know, I mean, y'all said these, but you're right. I mean, they're really terrifying. I would say that series is probably the scariest for me. If I had to say a second series, I was really close up, and people may disagree with me, but I would have to say the Scooby-Doo show. Just because like Gramps the Vamp and the feline, Make a Beeline, you know, the cat creature and some of those villains, I mean, were really dark. And especially for the 70s, I thought they did a phenomenal job. You know what I mean? So yeah, like I said, I think those two series kind of, like I said, I think Mystery Incorporated really, if we're talking creepy villains, really trumped the Scooby-Doo show. But man, the Scooby-Doo show for its time era, I think did a phenomenal job. But, you know, even too, I mean, I know you're talking about series, but for like, I think even for like the movies, like, okay, like take Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed, for example. The live action movie, they were scary, but if y'all just watched the museum scene, the very first museum scene, if they would have switched the villains out and they had the Wolfman in there, they had the Warlock of Wimbledon, and they had like the witch, and I mean they had some of these really creepy looking characters, like, you know what I mean, like the costumes. If they would have used those for the movie, I wonder if they would have been too scary, because if you just stop and look, like, holy crap, like if you go type in like I don't know, like the costumes from Scooby-Doo, you know, from the museum scene. Holy crap. Like some of those are just absolutely terrifying. So
I,
yeah.
I want to say too about the Monsters Unleashed. Have you ever seen like the behind the scenes of some of the monsters that got cut from the movie? Like they're supposed
Yes.
to be like the headless horseman and like the
Yes.
ghost clown. Like I think Wendy, you were saying earlier too, like the ghost clown's not very scary, like looking really, and Where Are You? But like the way that they made his costume look, if you like actually look at the pictures of him from the live
Oh
action
yeah.
movies, like that would have been
Yeah.
horrifying. That would have been super scary. I would have loved to see that. Like
Oh yeah.
no dice.
Alex,
that's
what
my
are your
feedback.
thoughts on the series with the scariest villains?
Okay, I agree with everything that everybody else said about Mr. Incorporated. It had some of the creepiest villains. But I have to agree with Cameron that the Scooby-Doo show did some really great stuff with the villains, especially for its time era. And especially in season 2. I think season 2, even though it was really short, it was like 8 episodes or something. It had some of the creepiest and darkest episodes. We already talked about vampire bats and scaredy cats. But also the creepy heap from the deep, for example, is a very dark episode. It looks kind of summer because you know there's a sea monster, there's a beach and everything, but it all takes place during the night, and that's really creepy. You know, night on the beach, it can be either really fun or really creepy. This time it was really creepy. For example, when they go up to the captain to warn him, and they find out he's zombified, or the creature took his soul, and he's just standing there, and he's supposedly scraping blood, creature spirit or something, and then he comes alive. I think that is one of the creepiest moments of the show. I remember the Scooby-Doo show was the very first series that I ever watched as a kid. It was airing on TV, and I distinctly remember that episode because it struck with me that the monster was actually stealing people's spirits. In the Greek translation, they did as souls, and that's kind of more creepy because you know, okay, a person has spirit, can have spirit, but everybody has a soul. So when somebody takes your soul, I mean, that sounds creepy, right? So I thought that season 2 had some of the creepiest episodes. What else? There was also the Chiller Diller movie thriller,
Oh yeah.
The Ghost of Milo Booth.
That made my list too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he has a creepy design, and overall, I think season 2 has some of the best villains of the entire franchise.
I agree.
Wendy, what are your thoughts?
I think that overall, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You is the scariest series. But again, I am going to make a distinction that that's not necessarily specifically the villains. It's everything put together. It's the story, the setting, the atmosphere, and the villains all kind of put together. I kind of feel though that, like other people have said, the Scooby-Doo show, it's really good for villains. The diabolical disc demon, is it a demon? Is it a clown? Is it a ghoul? Who the heck knows? But it's terrifying. I would not want that David Bowie looking thing chasing me around the recording studio. I'm just saying. I'm not even
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the idea of a milkshake vending machine is brilliant. I want one of those in my house. If that disc demon is following me around, I'm not even stopping for the milkshake. It's scary.
You should.
The no-face zombie is also a kind of a scary. I feel like that's an episode that it was never aired a lot when I was a kid. So it's not one that I've seen, you know, hundreds of times like a lot of the others, but he's dragging his leg and he's got no face. What's scarier than something without a face, which is kind of ironic because I feel like we often think, well, the more detailed or realistic you can make something, the scarier it'll have to be. But that's not always true. You know, I can't think of specifics, but I know there have been like real horror movies where somebody doesn't have a mouth or they don't have eyes, and it's not that they're stitched shut. It's the ones where they've been made to look like they don't even exist. It's terrifying, even if it's not meant to be terrifying and it's just supposed to like elicit sympathy or something. It's terrifying. It's very scary. So that zombie is definitely one. The sky skeleton, I like that episode because there is a girl named Wendy in that. So obviously that's one that I enjoy very much. But he's a scary villain. He really is. So I feel like they were kind of like at the peak of creativity with villains when they did that series. They really put a lot of time and effort into being creative. You know, let's not just rehash another clown or another vampire. Maybe we'll do something like that, but what can we do to like make it more and make it better? And I kind of feel like it does make sense for, you know, the mid to late 70s where they would be doing something like that. And I do think that the Scooby-Doo show has just a mildly lighter tone as far as scary balanced with funny. I do feel like Where Are You is a little bit scarier than the tone of the Scooby-Doo show, but they more than make up for that with the cool villains that they came up with. There's very few duds, if any, really. I mean, I don't know, Tamuka the Bull, was that really scary? Like, I don't know. I kind of feel like in Yabba and Scrappy Doo, where Deputy Dusty and Yabba dress up like a cow was maybe scarier than Tamuka. Just like I'm just saying, but yeah, there's so many good ones in the Scooby-Doo show. I don't really know that there was any that were bad. The Ghost of Dr. Coffin.
Oh my God.
Like he's a little bit silly.
True.
So I think that they did do that to I mean, yes, it does obviously go along with the idea of like a mad scientist who literally went mad. But I do think that they maybe were like, we need to temper it just a little bit for the kids that are watching because he's terrifying. He's so scary. And I feel like we don't even see him a whole heck of a lot in the episode. Like there's some episodes that are like villain heavy where you see them in more scenes than you do in other episodes where the villains are like, they're there, but you don't see them as often. Another one that I think is underrated, which is not from the Scooby-Doo show though, The Ghost of Christmas Never in a Nutcracker Scoob. Also kind of scary for essentially just a sheet ghost with a black face. I thought that one gives me the creeps. Like I love anything that's Christmas related. So as soon as I break out my decorations on November the 1st, I hope that offends someone because that is going to happen. It happens every year. It will happen this year too. Halloween night, I will be ditching all of my pumpkins and anything that has leaves on it.
God.
And in the morning on November 1st, my dad is going to be like, "What are you doing?" And I will just look at him and he'll be like, "Fine. Whatever you like." Whatever you like. My Christmas tree already has lights on it. Like I'm ready to go. I'm just saying. So anything that is like Christmas and it's Scooby and it's kind of scary, I don't need anything else. That's all I need.
Can I just say something about the Ghost of Christmas Never? I really wish that he kept the scythe that he had when he first appeared on the stage. Then he just ditches it. I'm like, why did you do that? You look like the Grim Reaper. That was awesome. Why did they have to leave it out then? And then after that, he was just, he didn't hold anything, more like the star that they found the decoration, but that was for like one scene. I think they really should have kept the scythe for the whole episode.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Completely agree.
Wendy, I agree with you about the no-face zombie. He was terrifying. And you're right. Anything that doesn't have a face is just really, really creepy.
Less is more.
Yeah, sure.
Definitely.
Devin, what are your thoughts on the villain or the series with the scariest villains?
Well, kind of like everybody said so far, I would say the Scooby-Doo show, amazing as far as the villains go, like super creative designs and like original characters and stuff. Mystery Incorporated just nailed the entire thing with the scary factor, I would say. But something about it being newer just isn't as scary as Where Are You? Like, I have to go with the classic on this one just because, like, villains aside, they're all classics. They're all iconic villains. Like, everybody knows them. Like, if you take the villains out of it, it's a scary series just as, like, how dark the art is. And like I said earlier too, like there's like not really any background characters like at all. So it's like the gang's just like always in the middle of nowhere in like a creepy house with just like some dude running around. And like, that's it. It's just them. And like, you know what I mean? Like they could die and nobody would know. You know what I mean? The whole setting and like the music is perfect for that whole series. Like, I know you guys were saying earlier too, like Charlie the Robot, he isn't necessarily a scary villain because he's just like a robot. But the music in that episode, like, that's my favorite episode of all time. I've always loved it since I was a kid. but something about the music in that episode always gets me. And like, I think that they used like music from the Jetsons or something, right? Like, is that right? Like for like the like, boop, boop, beep, beep, beep. Like I read that somewhere. I don't know if that's accurate, but I think they like took music from the Jetsons and used it in like the beep boop beep boop boop like music noise when he's like running around and stuff. But I don't know.
It would
I
make
think
sense
the
because it's more futuristic, you know.
Exactly. So like I feel like the music and just the like the darkness of the backgrounds and like of the tone of the show, villains aside, just makes that one definitely like the scariest for sure. In my opinion.
Before we move on to our next topic, Devin, do you have any more villains on your list that you think are scary?
I'll just read them and you guys can agree or disagree if they're scary. Okay. So we got Puppet Master, Wax Phantom, 10,000 Volt Ghost from the live action movie, Gramps the Vamp, Milo Booth. We've already talked about all these. One that I wrote down, Old Iron Face. I don't think he wasn't that scary to me in the episode. He was scary to me in Cyber Chase. For some reason, I don't know why he was scarier to me as a kid when he was in Cyber Chase, and like when like they go into like the wax museum and he's like standing there or whatever. I don't know. It's super creepy in my opinion. Also, I try to pick ghosts from like all like most of the series at least, just like so there's like a general like not just like favoriting anything. I wrote down the Leland brothers from What's New Scooby-Doo just because I don't know what it is about them, but like when I first saw that episode as a kid, it scared the crap out of me. And then like we'd go to like the video rental store and I would rent the DVD that had that on there and I'd watch it every time. And I was like, man, this is spooky. Mystery Incorporated, I wrote down Creeping Creatures and The Freak. Also I would say Alice May, that's a list on there, yeah. Werecats from Zombie Island, the zombies from Zombie Island, Phantom Virus from Cyber Chase. One that's kind of scary, I think he was on the list, Ben Ravencroft from Witch's Ghost, just because he's like just a guy. You know, he's like not in a costume or anything. He's just like a guy and he's like the villain. And that's just like, also Tim Curry, you know, does a great voice acting job. But I think that's kind of like what lended the role of like him being so creepy for me. The Woodsman from Camp Scare. I also wrote down, I don't know if I'd have to rewatch it again because I haven't seen it in a while. But I wrote down Beauregard's ghost from Boo Brothers. I don't know why, but he was scary to me too when I was younger.
He was kind of creepy because, he appeared a bunch of times, and in the end, you find out that he's real. So sometimes he was real, sometimes he was not, and you're like, okay, then when was he real? When was he fake? So you don't really know what's happening with all, and that goes for most of the ghosts in Boo Brothers. Like the skeleton, sometimes he could be real. The ape man running around is real, but is it the ghost ape man? Is it the ape man, the ape that escaped from the circus? And you never really know what's going on.
Exactly. The older movies are just super spooky. Oh, also, before I finish the list, which is only a couple more, the Mook films from the 90s also were in the list of like, it's not necessarily a scary series, but a scary set of movies. I feel like all four of those did a really good job of like a spooky setting and like revamping the franchise for like a different audience and kind of like a different updated vibe. And I think they did really good with those. But the last two on my list are the demons from the first live action movie. And like, they're pretty freaky, like all ribby and stuff, let's be honest. And the ones we didn't really get to see that much of, but on Zombie Island, the moat monster in the beginning was pretty creepy. And then also they have that little montage, and I wanted to see more of that like bat guy from like the cemetery. I thought he was kind of cool and looked pretty creepy. Yeah. So that's all the ones that made my list for as far as creepy looking.
Nice.
I have to say something about Ben Ravencroft because I was actually watching Witch's Ghost the other night, and you know, he does seem suspicious from the beginning, like he does have something dark in his eyes. But you say now, okay, he's a horror writer. I mean, okay, he kind of has this appearance, you know, and when he takes off the glasses, he just like goes full on insane, mad.
Yeah,
you can see his eyes, and he jumps around, you know, on the roofs, and he does all this magic stuff. You know, dude, okay, slow down.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Put your glasses back on. You're better then.
Yeah, for real. Does anyone disagree with any of those things? Are none of those scaries? Am I just like a baby? Like what?
The demons from the live action movie were creepy, but the way they acted most of the time was, more silly, more cartoony. So
Yeah.
it kind of took the creepiness out of them.
Mhm.
When the demons were, were going solo, for example, when the demon attacks Scooby in the forest, jungle, whatever it was, that was creepy. But when they raid, for example, the club, and they think, are we going to jump from the window? They're like, yeah, go ahead, and they crash through the tent. That was funny. That was more silly, more cartoony, and it wasn't really creepy. But as
Yeah.
an appearance, yeah, they were very creepy, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I'm not the
Wendy.
only one.
Wendy, do you have anything to add to his list?
Yeah, I do think that there is one that we've all left off, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to say it, and everybody's going to be like, oh, yeah. Now, maybe it is that it's the episode that is just really, really scary, but A Night of Fright is No Delight, The Green Ghosts.
Yeah.
That is an episode that at over 30 years old, I sometimes will get stupid and watch it before I go to bed, and I regret it every single time. It is that scary. That episode is terrifying when they start laughing like that. I think for me, the scariest scene out of any Scooby-Doo anything, and this even trumps Zombie Island, which was so terrifying. Just the whole thing, everything in that was terrifying. But the creepy music is building. The ghost comes out of the clock and goes up the stairs, and that music is just building, and he's laughing, and then all of a sudden there's a second one, and that
Mhm.
just done. Like, don't watch it at night.
Yeah.
There's a 99% chance that I'm going to watch it before I go to bed tonight and be like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this to yourself? But because now I want to watch it again. But yeah, I think that one needs to be on the list.
Also, like the coffins in the basement or underground or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
But like when they're like the cousins or whatever are like in the
Yeah.
coffins, like that scared me as a kid. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh my god, are they dead? Like, holy cow, what happened? That's scary.
And there was actually, a dog shaped coffin. It was like, oh my God, no, Scooby-Doo, you're not gonna die.
Yeah.
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 Cameron, do you have anything to add to Devin's list?
I was thinking about it, and a lot of people do not know about him, but it's from the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show, and I forget which season it is, but it's the Phantom of the Sewers. Do y'all remember that episode?
Oh yeah, it was a 7-minute short from the Richie Rich show.
Yes. I pulled up a picture of him
Yeah,
because
let
I
me see him.
people are gonna be like, no, I don't remember him, but let me show y'all. He is freaking terrifying. And let me see where I can. And he's just,
Oh,
I
God.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yes. Do y'all remember
Oh.
him? And he's just the way he laughs and runs around. And I watched all the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show. I mean, those are a lot of short episodes, so it's kind of mind-numbing when you try to watch all of them. But him, and then there was one episode on the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show where it was kind of like this. He was this guy who lived up in this temple, and he was kind of this cat creature looking guy. I can't remember. Yeah, but anyways, I mean, some of those villains always kind of freaked me out. Devin, I like how you said the moat monster and that kind of that bat looking creature, and the how he's or how Scooby and Shaggy hold that mirror and he just slashes it across, and they're running and he's jumping through the graveyard. Yeah, that was pretty freaky. Also, too, another one I want to throw on the list, actually two I want to throw on the list, is on the What's New Scooby-Doo. I forget his name, but it's that from the skateboarding episode. He has that hook, and it's San Francisco. Yeah, San Francisco. Yeah, he was freaky. I don't know what it was about him, but he freaked me out.
The lighthouse keeper is pretty creepy from What's New too, I'd say.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm from Wisconsin too, and that episode takes place in Wisconsin. So I'm like, okay.
There you go. Yeah, I don't know, but What's New Scooby-Doo had some pretty freaky, like the vampire from the Hex Girl episode. He was freaky.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But the one that the ones that really don't get talked about a lot were those red demons from the Scooby-Doo show. How they would always like put their hands on something and it would just like it would burn it. I don't know, and they would always just hiss and come up out of the ground, and like how like the mystery of the episode took like underground the city. Like I don't know, something about it was just kind of freaky. So I mean, those villains. I mean, like I said, we can keep going on. I mean, there's tons and tons of villains, but I don't know, something about those villains just golly, just freaked me out as a kid. And that's my thing. They're a really scary villain when they freak you out watching Scooby Doo as a kid, and now that we're older, and we go back and watch these episodes, like, oh my god, like nothing's changed. Like I cannot watch this that night.
Yeah.
So.
So let's talk about real versus fake monsters, and which do you prefer and which one do you think is scarier? And Wendy, let's start with you.
I think the idea of real monsters in and of itself is scarier, but to be honest, I don't really think that was successful except in Zombie Island, because I do think Zombie Island is like the epitome of scary Scooby-Doo in animated form anyway. I kind of like the fake monsters better because I feel like that allows the writers to make them look scarier without scaring the viewer too much. Because as soon as okay, it's not real, instantly it like dulls down the scare factor. They're still scary because they look terrifying, right? The designs are really great, but just knowing that it's not real sort of helps you like harness that fear and it doesn't take over, so you can still enjoy everything that's going on without just being so mindlessly frightened that you don't know what to do. I definitely think that in Zombie Island, I remember getting the VHS when it first came out, and it was a really big deal because it was like the first new Scooby thing that I had ever personally experienced in my life. And I do kind of like, did they market that as the zombies were real? They did,
Yes.
didn't they? Wasn't there like a promo where it's like, oh, now the
time the
monsters are real?
Yeah.
Something like that, right?
For sure.
And so I definitely went into that wondering if they were just joking, like, are they really going to be real? Because of course at the beginning we get, like you say, the montage where they're pulling masks off of people and everything like that. But just that idea that they were going to be real and there was that potential that whatever they were going to run into on the island, as scary as it may be, could potentially be something that was real, that made it very frightening to watch it as a kid. Like I went into it already a little bit scared because they're real. Well, as soon as you make it real, it's already more frightening to me than knowing that, well, no, whatever it is, it's an illusion of some sort. Magic, you can still enjoy magic if you know it's an illusion without knowing how it's done. As soon as you know how it's done, that kind of takes all the fun out of it. But I feel like I do appreciate it when magicians are like, I'm nothing special. I just have a skill that I have perfected of illusion, but it is an illusion. That helps me to enjoy it more. I don't like it when certain magicians are like, oh no, I'm amazing. I can do miracles. It's not a trick at all. I'm just doing this. Well, okay, whatever. No. So I think the idea of real ones is scarier, but I prefer fake monsters so that I can, like, I'd rather see the design work being frightening rather than like what it is, because I kind of feel like you could take the most mundane, well, just as an example, in The Shining, the twins.
Yeah.
What inherently is scary about them? It's just two little girls. They're really cute, and they're matching dresses and everything, and yet they're flipping terrifying.
It's
very scary.
Definitely.
It's very, very scary. Because they're real ghosts. It's, you know what I mean? That's what's doing it. So I feel like if monsters or ghosts are real, you don't really need the facade as much. Whereas when they're fake, you really have to put a lot into what they're going to look like to keep up that scare factor enough to, like, because I mean, obviously, even as a kid, I think if you're watching Scooby-Doo, you do want to be scared a little bit. You do want that kind of, like, even if it's just the kind of scare that you get like when you're on a roller coaster or something, it's still fear. That is the emotion that you're getting.
Adrenaline.
So Adrenaline, yes. Yeah. So you want that excitement, but I want to see that excitement come from the visuals rather than the reality that this is actually a thing that I should be afraid of. It's like, no, I don't need to be afraid of it, but it looks really scary, so I'm fine being scared.
Devin, what are your thoughts? Real versus fake monsters?
I'm glad you asked me next, actually, because I have the exact opposite opinion. So I think, okay, I'll say this. I think that, first of all, I like the fake monsters better personally. I'll just say that up front. I also think it's good to have a healthy mix of both. Like, it's like, I like, okay, they're in the masks, you know, and then like, okay, eventually real ones come in, and I think it's like a nice, healthy mix to have both. But in my opinion, I think that there's something way scarier about somebody just in a costume that's willing to, who knows what they're willing to do, like some demons or like the werecats or whatever, or like just any sort of real monster. They're doing their monster things because that's what monsters do, right? But some guy that owns a bank and he's like wants to like steal money from it, but then also chase some kids around at a barn. The creeper is what I'm discussing, if you didn't pick that up. It's something way scarier about that, because it's just like a guy who's going through all the trouble to dress up and like go through all this hassle and like chase people around and be scary on purpose. Monsters are just scary as they are. That's their nature. But something about a person just in a mask that's like, why are you trying to frighten me? You know what I mean? In this like old abandoned house. Why are you in here by yourself waiting for me or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, that's super weird. Like, that's super weird. Like, my wife and I've had this discussion before too, where like, we're like, because like horror movies, right? We're like, what's scarier, like a serial killer or like a ghost or like that kind of stuff? And she's always like, ghosts are way scarier. I've had plenty of paranormal experiences in my life. That's a whole nother story. But she always says that ghosts are scarier. I always say a serial killer is scary because it's like ghosts, yes, they're scary. I understand the, like, oh, they could be anywhere, anytime, but I don't see them. You know what I mean? A serial killer, they could just come in here and then I'm trapped in this room and I'm frightened for my life. Like, that's way scarier, just having like a real live person in my presence trying to either do me harm, and if they're not doing me harm, we're gonna pretend like they're gonna do me harm. And that's why I think that people in masks are a little bit scarier, personally.
Yeah. Alex, what are your thoughts? Real versus fake monsters?
Actually, I wanted to say exactly what Devin said. It's great to have a balance of both fake and real monsters. My favorite example is Witch's Ghost, that starts, you know, with a fake monster, ghost, but eventually there's a real one. And I think the real monsters kind of raise the stakes. For example, the demons in the first live action movie were real, so you know there was a whole organization behind it, and that takes up takes the stakes higher. It's a world threat. It's more dangerous and all that. But in the end, I think you know what? I don't really have a steady opinion. I think I want a little bit of both. Like, it's great to have the classic formula with the fake monsters and the masks, but it's great to break it every now and then. But what's not great is going back to properties with real monsters, 13 Ghosts, Zombie Island, and making sequel movies just to debunk the supernatural because Scooby-Doo is about monsters being fake and because Warner Bros. Said so.
I hate that.
I had heard an interview with what was his name? Tim Sheridan, I think, the director of Curse of the 13th Ghost. I think that was his name. I had heard an interview in a podcast where he was like, we were given specific directions from Warner Brothers to do this movie. They were like, first of all, there will be no real ghosts. Like, find a way to have a fake ghost. They didn't necessarily undo the whole series that had real ghosts, but they kind of tamper with it because you have Velma saying that, okay, you know what, the last ghost, it was real, but then they were like, Velma, are you sure it was? And she's like, nah, I just told Vincent that to make him feel better about himself or something. So you're like, okay, so what about the other ghosts? And she's like, mass hallucination. Like, that sounds super silly for an explanation.
Yeah.
But okay, the swamp gas in Return to Zombie Island, that explanation is like so stupid. You're like, Velma, you were there, you saw the zombies, you saw the cat creatures, and you're like, nah, this was just swamp gas. So okay, I don't think that's good to take even if it's just the popular parts of the franchise like Zombie Island, and you try to make a sequel, but you take the supernatural element out of it because that is what makes it stand out from other movies or shows. They didn't really debunk it because they had this fourth cat creature that it's implied that it's real. But I thought its addition was just to, not piss off the fans as much as they were pissed with Curse of the 13th Ghost. They were like, what are we going to do to just, not undo the movie? And so like, we're going to throw a real monster, but leave it up for interpretation, you know? Another thing that Devin said that I absolutely agreed with is that if the person behind the fake monster is dangerous and actually wants to cause you harm, I think that's creepier. An example that comes to mind is Mr. Greenway, who dressed up as a snow ghost. He actually chained Velma to a log and like wanted to cut her in half. I think that's the most dangerous situation that the gang has ever been in the entire franchise. At least, when it comes to people in masks. So yeah, if the person behind the fake monster is as dangerous and as psychotic as the example that I said, then yeah, I think it's creepier.
Yeah. Cameron, what are your thoughts on real versus fake monsters and which one you think is scarier?
Before I give my answer, I like what Alex said about like how that he tried to cut Velma in half. I also think about the Phantom Racer from the Scooby-Doo show, like when he shoves Shaggy and Scooby down like a car. There's been some like moments where like the gang they've been saved, but like when you think about it, like it's like they were trying like to be killed, like so I didn't even think of it like that. I would have to say I'm the thought of the real monsters is kind of scarier to me, and people may disagree with me. One thing I love about Scooby-Doo and that I find, and you hear me all the time and I sound like a broken record, but finding the balance. I felt like Scooby-Doo has really done that so well as a cartoon for 52 years because he's always found the balance of light and dark. It can be a super dark episode, but the gang being, fun and vibrant and silly, it really brings the lightness to the episode. So you're like, oh, I'm scared, but also too, like I can sit here and watch it. I think that's why kids really enjoy it, because I feel like as people, we like to be scared. We like to scare ourselves. We like to go through that. I personally enjoyed Zombie Island a lot. And if you go back and you watch, it was a kind of that trailer where Wendy, you were kind of saying like where it said this time the monsters are real, and it's the ghost of who is, hang on real quick, let me look. Oh yeah, Morgan Moonscar, and he was in it. I don't know why they didn't show this scene in Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, but it was terrifying where Morgan Moonscar was walking towards Shaggy and Scooby, and it was like lightning in the background. It's kind of a dark scene. If you go back and you look up the trailer on YouTube, it shows the scene in the trailer, and it's kind of dark and mysterious and spooky, and it's like, to me, it was neat how they did like the real monsters on Zombie Island. I think it was about a couple months ago. I was at Comic-Con with Scott, and we were running, and I was sitting there with him. I was talking with him. I said, Scott, I said, how did you feel? Because we had a little bit of downtime, and I asked him, I said, Scott, how did you feel about the monsters being real on Zombie Island? He said, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't a big fan of it in the very beginning. He goes, because I grew up watching Scooby-Doo and all the monsters being fake. But he was like, man, when it came together and the zombies are real and the cat creatures are real, and the it's terror time and the rock music, and they're on an island and there's no other living soul around, and they're being chased, they're being hunted for their lives. I mean, it was just it all came together, and it was just like one big bow on a movie. And I'm like, I never thought about it like that, but you're right. And I'm not trying to go off course a little bit, but like my favorite horror movie of all time is a cheesy 1980 movie called Silver Bullet. And Wendy knows what I'm talking about because I made her watch it. I told her, I was like, you've got to watch this movie. But it's this old Stephen King movie called Silver Bullet. Well, the werewolf, it's about this werewolf that's terrorizing this kid and it's terrorizing all these people in this town. Well, it's based off a novel called Cycle of the Werewolf. And the reason I'm talking about it is because that horror movie reminds me of a Scooby-Doo episode. And the reason I say it is because it's a light-hearted movie. It's about this brother and sister, and they're trying to have a better relationship. And it's just talking about it's a good, wholesome hometown, a small hometown. And these people are just such good people in this hometown. And it kind of reminds me of Scooby-Doo, like, you know, the gang, they're pure and they're wholehearted and they're wholesome. And it's kind of the people of the town. And Silver Bullet. But there's this werewolf and it's really dark. I mean, the music to and the background. And I guess that's what scares me the most. It's not really, I mean, the villains are the cherry on top, but it's kind of like what you four have touched on it. It's the music and it's the background and it's you know what I mean? And it's the setting and it's where it's at. I mean, that's what scares me the most. So when I watch Silver Bullet, I think of Scooby-Doo, because when I watch Zombie Island, I think it's the Silver Bullet, the movie, to me, and Zombie Island kind of go hand in hand because the monsters are real. Yeah, that's terrifying because it's like real life. I mean, how can I comprehend that? You know, monsters are fake. Well, you know, we're watching this movie, they're real, you know, yada, yada, yada. And I love what Wendy said, you know, the promo, this time monsters are real. That's terrifying, you know, because you think about it and it's like Scooby-Doo, no, the monsters can't be real. And you watch Zombie Island, you're like, oh my God. You know, then we watch Return to Zombie Island, they try to go against it. And I'm like, why? And then the Curse of the 13th Ghost, and they say, I think the one thing that angered me the most, and I rarely get angry on Scooby-Doo stuff because everything they've done has been phenomenal. But when they said that the Curse of the 13th Ghost, what they said, all the 13 ghosts were just an illusion. Oh my God, I got so angry because I love one of my favorite series of Scooby-Doo is the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. Like, it's a phenomenal series. Some people do not like it. I love it. The intro to it is terrifying. It's like, you know, it shows the chest of demons rotating and Scooby-Doo opening it up and all the demons coming out. I mean, that's terrifying. I mean, I remember watching it and being scared about that when I was a kid. And, you know, I don't know, like, to me, like, that those are real monsters in the 13 Ghosts. You know what I mean? So I think, to answer your question, Nikki, it's the real monsters that are scary, and it's been so much fun to watch Scooby-Doo kind of take on real monsters. You know what I mean? And I don't know. To me, you would think, as a Scooby-Doo fan and me loving the originals as much as I do, I'd be against it. But no, I'm actually really for it. I think they've done a phenomenal job kind of going the opposite. No, don't get me wrong. I love the whole, you know, taking off the mask and, you know, who's behind this. Nobody got away from these meddling kids. That's classic. I love it. That's my top number one. But kind of seeing them go in the opposite direction, kind of take that darker tone. I don't know. It's been really cool to kind of see the real monsters kind of, since we're talking about the Scooby-Doo franchise, kind of take it over in that sense.
I do prefer the villains to be fake because I like the message, the real monsters are human. I just think that it teaches kids a lot. It teaches adults. I mean, you know, there are really bad people in this world. And I feel like if the villains were always real, that message would definitely not be able to come across, you know. I also think that it would take away from the why if they were always real, because, you know, real monsters are just going to do whatever they do because they're monsters. So it's going to be harder to explain why they're doing whatever it is that they're doing. But when you have somebody dressed up in a costume, they always have a reason for doing what they're doing. And I think that really, like, I think, Wendy, I think you said this, it kind of brings everything together and, you know, it ties everything up. So I do prefer fake monsters, but I do like to see real monsters every once in a while. So what are your thoughts on some of the least scary villains And what series do you think the least scary villains come from? So I'm just going to say, we're not going to count Get a Clue, because there really aren't actual villains in Get a Clue. I mean, it's always Dr. Phibes, and he always has his henchmen dressing up or, you know, as like stupid things. And so we're not going to count Get a Clue. But you can do any other series other than that. Cameron, let's start with you.
I'm gonna go with a pup named Scooby-Doo. They're just, the villains are so silly. Like the cheddar monster, like that's my favorite like villain from the series. I don't know. I you know, there is dark, and you hear me say this all the time. There's like a multiverse of Scooby. There's the Scoobyverse is what I call it. And you know, you've got a lot of series where you can have a lot of fun, silly monsters, and you got some series where things are a little bit darker. It's just kind of like what you're wanting, you know. And when I sit out at night, I can watch Scooby-Doo. But the cool thing about watching Scooby-Doo is I'm like, okay, do I want to laugh or do I want to be a little bit scared, you know? And so you kind of got those series. Yeah, like I said, I think a pup named Scooby-Doo was kind of the villains that were a little bit sillier. I'm trying to think of another series where I think a pup was kind of the main one. I don't know of enough. I mean, the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show, those were some fun villains too. I mean, there's some creepy ones, but there were some fun villains there too. Some villains that were really just not as scary to me, but they had really cool stories and cool episodes. I mean, my favorite Where Are You episode was, and we talked about it, but Charlie the Haunted Robot, a Foul Play in Funland. I mean, I love that episode because I love carnivals, and I thought Charlie was just such an, you know, I love Charlie. He's my favorite Where Are You villain, and I want a Funko Pop of him so bad. I'm like, God, Funko, get on it. Yeah, like I love Charlie. I think some other cool episodes where they're not necessarily, they're really nostalgic villains, but I don't feel like they're scary. You know, the Black Knight Ghost, I don't feel like he's scary, but I love his design. You know, I think, you know, it was a fun episode. I also liked I'm trying to think which one. I really enjoyed the episode A Galloping Ghost, about, you know, it was you know, the Wolfman and Frankenstein and Dracula, and to me that was a really cool episode, and I never really hear people talk about it as in this sense, but it was kind of like they were touching on the Universal monsters, you know what I mean, like the old Frankenstein from the old movies, the old Dracula, the old Wolfman, and it's kind of like they threw it in on the episode. It wasn't scary, it was silly and funny. But you know what I mean? Like, you go back and you watch those old movies, they're not scary. You know what I mean? Like, we laugh at them because they're just like, they're not terrifying, but they're silly, fun monsters. But yeah, I think to answer your question, I think A Pup Named Scooby-Doo was just one of those series where the monsters were silly. They were dancing along with the kids. You know what I mean? Like, they would jump, or I mean, they weren't really like bad villains, they were just silly villains, you know what I mean. And A Pup Named Scooby-Doo is one of my very top, like, gets in my top 5 favorite series. So
Wendy, what are your thoughts on the least scary villains?
Yeah, I was gonna say what Cam said. A Pup Named Scooby-Doo is they're not very scary, which I think was by design. I don't think that they're meant to be scary, because I think that show was definitely geared towards younger kids. Although I will caveat that with the Ghost of Boogity Bones was a little bit creepy.
yeah,
I have to admit.
He's my
If
favorite.
I saw that, you know, just like the face and the foot alone would be enough for me to be like, no, I'm not doing that. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I can add anything to what Cam said, because I kind of agree with all of it. You know, there are a lot of episodes where the villains are really great, like A Gaggle of Galloping Ghosts, but it's not necessarily scary. And ironically, I think that them potentially making that a nod towards the Universal monsters made it even less scary, because I don't necessarily think that the Universal monsters were frightening, except for the Invisible Man. I think that is a scary movie. But like Boris Karloff's Frankenstein, like, he's not scary. He's a very sympathetic monster, you know. And that's definitely by design, because do not think that you know the story of Frankenstein if you've only seen the movie, because the book is very, very different. It's completely different. They are not the same at all. Karloff's monster is not the monster from Mary Shelley's book at all in any way, shape, or form. But I don't know. I can't. Just the ones I mentioned earlier, like the tar monster is not scary. I do have to disagree just a little bit with Alex. Alex had said the creepy heat from the deep. Now I will say that soulless Captain Clemens was scary, for sure. But the creepy heap himself, that's one where I was just like, I can appreciate how you designed him, but I don't necessarily think he's scary. Even Captain Cutler, I don't find to be like a scary ghost. He's got a cool look, but it never really scared me at all as a kid. There's definitely some from the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy show, especially the 7-minute shorts, where for the most part all of those monsters were real. The one villain that was actually scary in those, or monster, whatever you want to call it, in Tender Bigfoot, I think that the Bigfoot that they designed was quite scary until he falls in the lake and he comes out, and of course he's not big anymore because his hair is all matted down, and then he's not scary, but he is scary earlier on. But some of them, they're just a really great design for a monster, but they're not necessarily like, you're not really scared. There's like, I cannot think of I think the episode is Rocky Mountain Yee. And
Yeah.
I think he's like supposed to be the ghost of Jeremiah Johnson or something, like a Jeremiah Johnson lookalike. I don't know. And he's fun, he's fun, but he's not really scary. It's not scary. But yeah, I think a pup named Scooby-Doo, you can't, because it is kind of its own thing that I don't think was ever meant to be super scary at all. But I mean, it is kind of a testament though to Scooby as a whole, that like I'm struggling to think of monsters or villains that I can be like, well, they're not scary at all, or I don't like them, or they're the worst, like, because they all kind of have some merit to them in some way, shape, or form, because even the ones that are not scary can still do scary things in the episode. So maybe they're not scary, but they do something that's scary, but yeah, pup named Scooby-Doo, least scary for sure.
Alex, what are your thoughts on the least scary villains?
I'm glad you asked me next, because I want to respond to some things that Wendy said. Okay, first of all, I think everybody's going to agree that Pup Named Scooby-Doo has some of the silliest villains. For example, like the Cheddar Monster, like Cameron said, or the living hamburger. It was like literally a hamburger with arms and legs running around. I mean, that's as silly as you can get.
Yeah.
But Pup Named Scooby-Doo did have some, I won't say creepy, but I'll say kind of scary looking villains, like Boogity Bones, the face on his foot. And there was this, okay, she wasn't a monster. I forget her name. It was this painter lady who wanted to paint Scooby. And they thought she was like a mad scientist. She wanted to behead Scooby. I think that was kind of creepy. But she was a person. So yeah, that episode was different, but still, the idea that Scooby had run away and there was some crazy lady running after him, trying to take his head off. I mean, that was creepy for that show. Something else that Wendy said about the 7-minute shorts, I kind of thought that Bigfoot from Tender Big was kind of cute. I thought he was just, trying to make friends. He was bothering the guys. He was picking at their food basket. I thought he just needed company. And then he was like, "You don't want to blue me? Fine, I'll just go back to hide." I thought that was kind of cute, though.
It is cute. It is cute.
A creepy villain from the Scrappy shorts, I think, was Shaggy's werewolf form from Moonlight Madness.
Yes.
This might be my favorite of the 7-minute shorts. And I don't really like those shorts because they tend to be repetitive. Like Scooby and Shaggy and Scrappy ran into a real monster. Scrappy bothers the monster, and then they run around. Scrappy keeps giving away their hiding places. And in the end, they defeat the monster in some silly or very rushed way. Either that or a big bad bully is after them, and he always threatens that he's going to punch them and he's going to blah, blah, blah. So I think that Shaggy's werewolf form was really creepy. I think the scariest scene I remember was when Scooby is out looking for Scrappy, and he's on the top of the staircase, and the Shaggy World just comes up behind him and howls, and Scooby just goes down the stair. I think that was really creepy for some reason. I don't know. The whole setting was scary, the castle, and the only other person that was there, the butler, was against them. So that kind of made it creepy too. But anyway, back to the silly villains. Something else I want to say about the creepy heap. Okay, yeah, his design, the whole idea that it's stealing souls is creepy, of course, like you said, and the design is cool too. I thought that the scariest part, it might be weird, it was his growling for some reason. Like, I remember watching the episode as a kid, and I never watched it again until like years later. In between those years, I purchased the Night of 100 Frights video game, where the creepy hippie is one of the villains that you have to defeat across the game. I don't know if you guys played the game, if you know what I'm talking about. The creepy heap is it's a different version of it with a really, really, really high-pitched voice. And it goes like, here, doggy, doggy, doggy. And he just he walks around with his high-pitched voice and said, here, doggy, doggy. I mean, that's not creepy. And I was like, wow, did this monster really sound like that in the episode? Was I terrified of that thing? And then I watched the episode and it started growling in a very heavy voice, and I was like, oh, that's why I was scared of it. Okay, and now back to the sillier villains. Besides a pup named Scooby-Doo, I think that Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf had some really silly monsters. I mean, they tried to make them a little creepy at first, like when Scooby, Shaggy, Scrappy, and what was his name, Googie, wake up in the castle, and they are all standing in front of them and laughing and like, haha, you're in our castle now. And then they start acting so silly, like amongst them, like they're teasing each other, they're bullying each other. Like the Hunch Bunch was kind of silly. I have literally no idea why every monster was scared of them in the beginning. And they were like, Dracula was like, I'm gonna bring in the Hunch Bunch. And it was like, oh no, oh my God, not them. And when they appeared, they just trembled in the corner. And literally minutes later, they bully them. Like they throw stuff at them. They use them for the dirty work. I mean, I was like, aren't you scared of them? I think you were trembling back then. Like, what happened? So yeah, I think that the monsters in the Reluctant Werewolf, even though they were real, they were really silly, and I think that was the point after all. Dracula though was creepy. Like his design was kind of scary. There was a scene in particular where what was it? When he overhears that Shaggy wants to sleep, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna keep him up. And then he looks in the camera and says, oh, Crunchy, Brunchy, I have a job for you. And his teeth just get larger and larger. And I'm like, whoa, that's creepy. As a villain, he was kind of silly with his accent and everything. And he was constantly being run over in the middle of the race. And his plans were getting foiled. But there were parts in the movie that he did seem creepy. But overall, he was kind of silly.
And Devin, what are your thoughts on the least scary monsters?
Do I have to say a pup named Scooby-Doo too?
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, obviously pup named Scooby-Doo. I love the designs of the monsters just because they're so silly and fun and like different. I won't harp too much on that because obviously I'd say the same thing. Yeah, pup named Scooby-Doo, definitely the least scary, but I would also throw in Be Cool kind of. I'm a big fan of the show. I liked it a lot. I thought that I like the animation personally. I know a lot of people had issues with that, but I thought it was funny and it worked well. But the animation style, I feel like, made it a lot less scary than other series had, especially like the older ones or like the movies and stuff. Like the villains, like they're well designed and Be Cool, but they just weren't scary at all. You know what I mean? They were just kind of like, okay, you know, a little more cartoony. Not as cartoony as like a pup named Scooby-Doo, but definitely still like cartoony enough where they were just like not too spooky, just kind of like more like cool. I was trying to think of villains though, just like random ones that like aren't scary from not like such a cartoony series. And I was just thinking they had like an episode where it was like Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and stuff. Like, was that, I don't remember which one that was. Was it like a wax museum or something? Or they were in like a museum and there was like George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, and I was like, they're not that scary. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, okay, some past presidents, like not anything to like be frightened over.
It was actually the White House. It wasn't a wax museum. It was it wasn't, you know, I get what you're saying. Like, they weren't really wax figures. They were literally the ghosts of the presidents. But yeah, it wasn't scary.
Yeah.
Are you talking about this?
Was there one with like Ben Franklin or something? I feel like there's a wax museum one.
I think you're talking about the episode from the Scooby-Doo show where they get locked in, I think, the White House or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
you were talking about the Spirits of 76. Oh, okay, sorry. I thought that you were talking about the new Scooby-Doo Mysteries.
Okay.
Because you said Abe Lincoln and he was there, so okay.
I can't remember. I can't remember the exact episode. I just remember seeing them, and I'm just like, they're not that scary. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, but that's, I guess, same thing. Pup named Scooby-Doo, pretty much. And I would throw Be Cool in there just as like one that's like a little bit more cartoony, so it's not as scary. But yeah, I would say that's But also, I want to throw in, you guys, we're a little ways away from it now. Universal Monsters. I'm a big fan of Universal Monsters as well. I've got like Frankenstein like right here, and I've got an autograph from Julie Adams. She was like the girl from The Creature of the Black Lagoon right here. And I was thinking about it too. One of my favorite movies that features the Universal Monsters, I'm not sure if any of you have ever seen it, is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. I don't know if any of you have seen that, but
I've been meaning to watch it for some time now.
Okay, yeah, because it's got Frankenstein, the Wolfman, Dracula, and then like the Invisible Man's in it at the end too. Sorry, spoilers. But like from a movie from like almost like 100 years ago, pretty much close to it. But like, I think that was one of the first movies that really blended comedy and horror well. And I think that was like a good predecessor to like Scooby-Doo almost, because it like was like one of the first things that blended like horror and comedy, and it worked out really well. And they made like multiple movies after that, and it was one of the first things that had like movie series that was like a cinematic universe. I know that like Marvel does that, and like everybody tries to do that now, and Scooby's even trying to do that now too. But like the Universal Monsters were like one of the first people to like kind of do that, and I feel like they did it really well. And I feel like Scooby-Doo came like not too long after that, and they were another like one of the first like horror comedy things that worked out really well and has stuck around for like such a long time. And that's why like Universal Monsters are such like a classic thing that's still like in our like general consciousness, and so is like Scooby-Doo. So I just wanted to throw my input on Universal Monsters in there because I really like them. So.
Devin, have you seen The Monster Squad?
Okay, I have a list of movies I want to watch, and it's on there. I haven't seen it yet. I want to watch it.
So it's one of my favorite movies of all time, and it features all the Universal monsters like that. Those are just the villains. And
I know. I've seen the trailers.
Yeah, and it's really good because like even like someone drew like fan art of Scooby-Doo and Shaggy, and they were like scared and like it was a monster squad around them. I thought it was really cool.
That. I love that.
I was telling Wendy, she was like, what movie should I watch? I was like, definitely watch The Monster Squad. It's like one of those kind of like the movie, I forget, like yeah, like it's just like that. It's just like it's comedy blended with horror.
Yeah, I definitely want to see it. Those are my favorite types of movies where they're just like super cheesy, like anything like 80s and like prior, like always is just like a treat. It's just a treat. It's always great. Like Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I think Wendy mentioned that earlier too. That's just funny because it's just so campy and like that's ridiculous. I think Scooby-Doo kind of reminds me of those. I think that's why those like kind of blend in my mind in that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For least scary villains, I definitely agree of Pup Named Scooby-Doo. And some of the ones that came to mind were Bigwig, the Burger Monster, Chickenstein, the Snail Monster, and the Headless Skateboarder. I just think that they're completely ridiculous. And I mean, for the show, it makes sense because they were kids, so you're going to have cheesier monsters. But yeah, definitely less scary.
I want to say something to Devin. It's funny that you mentioned Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein because very recently Tony Cervoni, producer on Mr. Incorporated, director of Scoob, uploaded a screen cap of the movie on Instagram. And he actually said that when he writes Shaggy and Scooby, he actually thinks of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. So yeah, I definitely get what you said, that it feels like a good predecessor to Scooby because it blends horror and comedy. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that, but yeah, it makes total sense. Like, I don't know why
Yeah.
they wouldn't draw inspiration from it. You know what I mean? Like, those were such big things at the time. They did so well. So, like, I could totally see it, Scooby drawing inspiration from that. So it makes total sense.
I mean, if we could have access to like early interviews of Will Hanna and Joe Barbera, I think they would say the same thing actually, that they drew inspiration from those movies.
Yeah, I could totally see it. Absolutely. You mentioned Chickenstein a second ago, and him in Monsters Unleashed, I would have also loved to see him come to life because his design was way different than from Pup Named Scooby-Doo, and I would have loved to see that come to life. I think that would have been like super cool to see. So, and also hear like what he sounds like. I couldn't imagine.
He actually looked like a regular Frankenstein's monster, but with a beak. So it's kind of creepy.
Yeah, I liked his design a lot in that. I thought it was really cool.
You know, Nikki, you asked us if we had any more. You know, there's two villains that came to mind, and I wanted to ask y'all if these villains scared y'all as well. And I forgot, I had it on my list, and I totally forgot to mention him. But the shadow creature from The Ghoul, the Bat, and the Ugly from the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show, did he scare y'all? Because he scared the crap out of me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was, I don't know what it was. I guess it was like the maze scene and like him chasing them through the maze and like him swinging for, like, I don't know, like just something about it. And like the scene where he's actually like moving into the camera, you know what I mean? Like he's far away and he's like moving in. It's like, I don't know, that freaked me out. And then the other villain that came to mind was the alien from, I think it was like Strange Encounter from a Scoob Kind or something like that was the episode. And he was like, I know it was very silly, like where he was driving the car in the very beginning, but like his laugh and just the way like his design, like his sharp teeth, I don't know. But like, I wanted to ask you off the shadow creature and that alien from the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show, if they both scared y'all as well, or if y'all just found them to be silly.
Well, you know, aliens in general are kind of scary because like they wipe your mind, so you have no idea what they've done to you.
That's true.
Aliens can be creepy in general because they never have a specific form. Like, for example, if you were going to see a vampire, okay, he's going to have the fangs, he's going to have probably a cape or something, but the aliens can take so many different forms. It can be gray aliens, it can be, you know, more like a dinosaur or something. It can be a lot of things. That particular alien, okay, his design, I didn't think was really creepy, but his voice and his laugh definitely were.
Yeah.
And the way he was looking for Scooby, Shaggy, and Scrappy, he was like, "Oh no, I'm gonna find you." Know, like, oh, okay, that's creepy. And the shadow creature, yeah, that scene that you mentioned that he moves towards the camera, yeah, that was creepy and amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you, Alex, about like design not so creepy, but voice and stuff definitely creepy about that alien. And also like aliens in general, in my opinion, are like so hard to like pull off. Like they're either like super kind of cheesy or like they're really cool. And I'd say like the least scary out of the four movies, but Alien Invaders, I really like the alien design for like the costumed ones, like with their like the way their heads were shaped.
Yeah,
was different than just the classic like alien look. You know what I mean? And I liked their design a lot. So that was just a side note I had to throw in there. So.
But they weren't creepy. Like
No,
I wasn't
they weren't.
afraid of them.
No,
Yeah.
I wasn't. No, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another really scary moment from the original series that I've always loved, and I was kind of disappointed that that level of scary didn't really follow throughout the episode for me, but in Haunted House Hang Up, that opening for me is like the scariest opening of any Scooby-Doo episode because it's got that creepy music and it's just like looking in the yard and the leaf blows by, you know, and then we come in the house and then that, like, I love when there's a scene somewhere where it's animated, but you're getting like the level of detail that you get with the background art in the actual animation. So that candle that the headless specter is carrying around, and then it's just his hand, and then all of a sudden it's a guy with no head. And I love just that opening is so great, and it scared me so much as a kid, and it still freaks me out a little bit. But I do feel like it didn't quite carry that same level of scary throughout the whole episode. And I kind of wish that it had, because that was just like spot on. Whoever did that storyboard for that opening, like, wow,
Yeah.
props to you. That was awesome.
No, I totally agree with that too.
I actually could never really take the Headless Spectre seriously for a very specific reason. Okay, it's definitely one of the best episodes of the series. Everything from the atmosphere to the freaking chase song. I think that's my favorite chase song in all of Scooby-Doo. I first watched this episode on the Creepy Escapers VHS. I actually growing up, I only had 3 VHS tapes. It was Creepy Escapers, Witches, Ghost, and Monster of Mexico. And then because VHS tapes weren't really that popular back in 1999, and slowly, DVDs took over, so I didn't really have a lot of VHS tapes anyway. So these 4 episodes were the first Where Are You episodes that I ever watched. And okay, I remember being really frightened by the intro, like you said, the yard and the leaf and the detail in his head. And when he shows up, the handkerchief around his neck kind of looked like the face to me. It had something that could be eyes, something that could be a deformed mouth or something. So I didn't really get that he was headless until they mentioned it. It was like, I thought if he just had a really short head. Okay, I did find it creepy, but I also found it weird. And I was like, okay, so what the heck is that? And later, and they say there's this headless spectre. I'm like, oh, so he didn't have a head. Okay, I can go with it.
One thing I think we can all kind of agree upon with Scooby-Doo is that no matter how dark or anything can go or keep it light. It's wholesome. And and I'm wearing the shirt because I know this is kind of like a Halloween special, but Goosebumps. I loved Goosebumps because yes, the monsters were real in there, but it was still clean. It was something that we could watch as kids and still yet be scared. And I disagree with people. People are like nowadays, like, oh, nothing should scare kids. I watched Goosebumps. I watched Scooby-Doo. I watched all these things growing up because I wanted to be scared. You know what I mean? And that's not a bad thing. Wanting to be scared, I think it just kind of makes it fun. It's kind of that small adrenaline rush. It's like, oh my gosh, I know the monster's coming. I don't know where he's going to pop out, But even when we had those super scary monsters in there, I'm so glad that yet it's still fun, and I guess that's why I think we kind of all talked about like connecting. Like I feel like Goosebumps, and then like that movie I was talking about, Silver Bullet and the Monster Squad, and all these different things, they kind of connect in a way because it throws comedy in there, but it's also kind of dark. And like I was saying earlier, it's kind of that find the balance. And I don't know, something about Scooby-Doo has just kind of taken all those elements and just kind of, made it just a really, really fun cartoon. I don't know if y'all agree with that or not, but I don't know. It's just so phenomenal. And that's what people always ask me all the time. They're like, why do you collect Scooby-Doo? Why do you love Scooby-Doo so much? And I'm like, number one, those cartoon I just grew up with and I loved them, but it's a cartoon where you get all the feels. You get scared, you get happy, you get sad. You know what I mean? Like it's because it takes all those emotions into one cartoon. And honestly, y'all, I don't know another cartoon out there that does the same that Scooby-Doo does. I may be biased because y'all look behind me and I'm just like, I'm addicted, but I don't know. It's phenomenal. I think all of y'all can, I don't know, kind of agree with me on that.
Absolutely.
I agree with you on the wanting to be scared, but on the level of Scooby-Doo scared.
Yes. Yes.
Like,
I hate horror movies.
Yes.
When I watch horror movies, it's stuff like House of a Thousand Corpses by Rob Zombie or Strangeland with Dee Snider. And they terrify me. And I just think, people like them and Stephen King and these horror writers, would they be serial killers if they didn't have movies and books as an outlet? Do they just write about it and that's how they get it out because they're being creative and they're writing about all the things that they have in their head. But if they didn't have that, would they be killing people? I always think about that.
I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, I wanted to mention too, really quick, because you brought up Goosebumps. Goosebumps is another one of my favorite, from childhood. I've got like a bunch of Goosebumps books over there actually, and like a Goosebumps flashlight. And I bought this ring that's like one of the skeletons from Goosebumps last week, and it's over there. But I've also got these two. They only came out with two, and they're these parody books of Goosebumps, and they're called Gooflump by R.U. Slime. And they're just like parodies of the stories from it, and like I don't know, they're just super funny. And I also got, do you guys know Garbage Pail Kids at all? Like their cards, you guys know those? I used to collect those as a kid, and then R.L. Stine made Goosebumps. They came out with like a collaborative book about Garbage Pail Kids where he like wrote it and stuff, and then there's pictures and stuff. It's really cool. Like the inside's kind of like got that green like slime look, and then there's like some cards in the back that I couldn't help, like I couldn't bring myself to take them out, but I just wanted to share that too. I thought those were some really cool Goosebumps related things, so I just wanted to share those. So.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I like
Very cool.
I've got a lot of stuff. So,
don't
We
we
all
all?
have a lot of
talk
stuff,
about.
I think.
It's fun to talk about, you know. Okay, so let's get back on track. About the Scooby-Doo villains. I might be a baby in this, but one that scared me as a kid was the Phantom of Vasquez Castle. Like, I know he's just like a sheet ghost, basically, but like that episode's just kind of eerie, like on the island, and like I don't know, it's just there's something about it, and like when Scooby's dressed up and he goes out there and there's like the painting and stuff, and like I don't know, something about it's creepy, but I also love it. Like I don't know, ghosts like that are so funny to me, and like the Headless Spectre episode too with the like phony phantom or whatever they like to call him. Worst costume. I guess we could also say he's not that scary. He did have an axe. Maybe he's scary, but like something about that is just so funny. Like I have a tattoo right here too on my arm. It's literally like a guy in like a sheet ghost with like legs sticking out. So it's like a guy has just the ghost costume on. So maybe I'm biased in that sense, but I think that like ghosts like that are just funny and cool because they're so classic and simple.
Another villain that I wanted to talk about earlier is from What's New, The Mummy. It's personally my favorite episode of the show. I think it's one of the scariest, if not the scariest, of the traditional mummies with the bandages and everything. More because of his design. He's not like wrapped in bandages that could also be toilet paper or something. It actually has the crown and the wristbands and everything that a pharaoh would wear. And the part where he takes off his mask and he reveals his skeleton face and there's worms coming out of it, I think was really creepy. And also the zombie servants were creepy, how they were moaning with their red eyes and saying, join us, join us. I think generally this episode had some of the creepiest moments of the show.
I agree.
Yeah. I'm glad that Alex brought up mummies because I had forgotten that in Where Are You, the mummy of Anka was like, for me, one of my biggest disappointments because as a kid, I was obsessed with mummies and Egyptology when my dad would take me to the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto, like multiple times when I was little, which was a big deal because it's like 7 hours away. But I was like, take me to the mummy room. I want to see the mummies. I want, and all these books that my parents bought me when I was like just this little kid because I was just completely obsessed with mummies. And I wanted to love that episode so much, but he's just so boring. He's not like the mummy. The real mummy that they show at the end, like the mummy that belongs in the sarcophagus, that mummy's scary. I was like, why couldn't you just make him walk around?
But his voice is pretty scary too, though. Like he's like going, like that's pretty scary.
His voice was great. The voice was fantastic because I do feel like sometimes in Scooby-Doo, it's the voice of the villain that makes it less scary. That the look is really great, but the voice is like, I could see maybe tweaking that a little bit to make it more scary. So definitely the voice for the mummy was like perfection. But I don't know. I just feel like it was just a very flat, boring looking mummy. He had the walk down, which I appreciated, but just in and of himself. And I don't know if that's because of the mummy at the end, that as soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, that is a scary looking mummy. And so I wish that you would have kind of incorporated more of that gaunt look, or dead look, like it's a mummy. Yeah, it's wrapped up, but you're still supposed to be able to see that it's dead. You know, it's a desiccated corpse. Come on. But yeah, that one always that definitely was like a disappointment for me. That would probably go on like my list of my least favorite villains, simply because I wanted to love it so much, and it was just a little too boring for me.
I have to say though that there was a specific moment in that episode that I found creepy. Was when the mummy actually kidnapped Scooby, and they're in the science room of the museum, and there's a smoke going around, and suddenly the smoke goes away, and Scooby's missing. I think that was the very first time that a villain actually kidnapped or tried to hurt Scooby. So I found that really creepy. And then you see that Scooby supposedly turned to stone and everything. But then, he comes out of the shed and he's crying with Shaggy on the stadium. That was funny. But until that moment that was funny, I think it was really dark, not necessarily creepy, but dark, because he actually went to the trouble to kidnap a dog. A dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. True. Interesting.
Anything else that you guys want to talk about?
I have a couple questions, actually.
Okay.
I just want to know what your guys' thoughts are on villains. Like, my preference, I like a villain, like, when I know that it's like when it's more humanoid, I guess. So it's like, it's a guy in a mask or whatever, and it's like, they're more humanoid. Like, I don't like the big ones, like the Loch Ness Monster types. Like, not saying the episodes are bad or anything, or the movies, but like, I don't like when they're like the Loch Ness Monster or like the Fast and the Wormiest from What's New Scooby-Doo, like the big worm and stuff. I'm like, okay, it's just like too big and like too much, and it's like, oh, robots and all this stuff, you know what I mean? I like when they're more like humanoid, and I was just wondering if you guys had like a preference to that like kind of thing as well.
I definitely get what you mean by humanoid. Like, for example, you don't need to have a big elaborate plan like a robot or a fast car like the Fast and the Wormiest that does all these kind of things. I definitely like the simplicity in the humanoid monsters. But I can't help but love when there's a big monster that actually looks really creepy, like the Loch Ness Monster from the movie, not the episode from the Scooby-Doo show, the movie. That was really that was a very good-looking monster, I think. But generally speaking, yeah, I think I prefer more humanoid villains too. For example, the Snow Beast was really cool, but it was just a giant robot. The 30-foot Shaggy from Big Apple and Little Tokyo was actually very creepy. And the fact that this could be Shaggy that transforms into this huge monster was kind of creepy as a concept. But okay, it's always a big robot when there's large monsters, and that takes away. You don't have to wonder. Oh, so how did he or she or they do that? It's just a robot.
Exactly, it takes away.
Yeah, when you know it's a human, you actually you try to figure out how they did some tricks if they did. But if there's a large monster, you go like, okay, yep, that's definitely a robot. It can't be anything else.
One of the series, Guess Who, I feel like a lot of the villains there are just so weird. And at the moment, I can't think of their actual names, but there's the one that like it has a mouth coming out of its mouth and it's red. It's in the space episode.
With Bill Nye, that episode.
That's another one. He was like that mole-looking thing. That he was just really weird. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at the names.
I've only seen those episodes once.
Because I've only watched this episode like once, maybe twice, because it's one of my least favorite series, to be honest. I do plan to rewatch it just to give it another chance. Maybe you're talking about the monster from the episode with Malcolm McDowell.
Yes, that one.
Oh yeah, that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Creepy, but in a weird way. I don't know.
Yeah, and then the one with Bill Nye. That
was just disgusting. I think that's an actual living organism. I forget what it's called, but it's actually a living organism. It's so freaking ugly. Like you feel sorry for it.
Yeah, but I felt like they kind of did some weird stuff in that series with the villains.
I think that they didn't give the villains much of an origin story most of the times. They did have some weird choices. One that comes to mind is that fish kind of looking monster from the Wanda Sykes episode. It didn't have any sort of background or backstory, like where did this come from? Was it a mutation? Was it this? Was it that? I think they just, they have some cool ideas as far as villains go, but they don't give them enough background. They just throw them in the episode without any explanation most of the time.
I felt like some of the Guess Who episodes were kind of rushed a little bit, and I don't mean to mean. I think that the episodes are really good. I love their kind of bringing back the new Scooby-Doo, mysteries. You know what I mean? The new Scooby-Doo movies. Kind of like they're featuring a guest and they're teaming up. But I don't know. I kind of felt like some of the episodes were a little rushed. We really didn't get to know about the villain. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like boom, boom, boom. Then it was over. You know what I mean? I didn't like that. But Devin, I do know what you mean about the whole, humanoid or the big monster. Some of the big monsters like the Snow Beast Fright or like, Scooby-Doo, I know the Phantosaur, Scooby-Doo and Legend of the Phantosaur. Yeah. I thought those were pretty cool. But I prefer the humanoid ones, like the human actual like monster in that sense. Some of the ones, and people may disagree with me, but some of the ones were just, I felt like there wasn't a lot of like effort put into them. Like the Spirits of 76. Like I felt like the episode was so boring. Another one was A Tiki Scare is No Fair. I love the Witch Doctor, but it's a human chasing you around. Like all you gotta do is turn around and just like slap the mask off or like trip them and be like, it's a mask. Yeah. But like some of those, I'm like, oh, it's so, they make it like it's, oh my gosh, she's coming after me. Like this is a monster, but like, I don't know. Like, and there's been ones where like, you can tell it's a human, like, the Phantom from the neon roller disco, you know what I mean? Like that one, I get that. But Wendy, what were you saying? I should know this, y'all. I'm sorry, my mind's just like blank right now. But what's that one where he's kind of the clown looking one from the recording studio from the Scooby-Doo show? What?
Diabolical.
Thank you. It's all tip of my tongue. But yeah, like he's a human, but the way they made him look was terrifying. I'm like, oh my God. So I do agree with you, Devin. I feel like some of the humanoid ones are really creepier. But then also too, I can kind of see where some of them are kind of like there's not a lot of effort put into the villains. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just like a cheap knockoff. And they're just taking around like, dear God, like, come on, y'all.
It's funny that you mentioned the Witch Doctor and the mask, because you can really tell that it's just a mask that goes in the front and there's nothing hiding the back.
You can see his ears showing. Yeah, like I know it's a man.
I remember watching the episode when I was younger. On DVD actually, and then a couple of years later I got the action figure of the Witch Doctor, and I was like, oh yeah, he's really cool. And then I turn him around and I see that from behind it's just at the back of his head, like you can see his neck and his black hair and a string that holds the mask together. And I was like, was it like that in the episode as well? And I rewinded the episode and I skimmed through it. And I tried to find scenes where the Witch Doctor was shown from the back, and there are actually no scenes where the Witch Doctor is shown from the back, so you can't actually see like what's the back like.
Yeah.
In Night of 100 Frights, where they have the Witch Doctor as a villain that you can defeat throughout the game, I think that the back of his head is actually an extension of the thing around his neck, like it's like an orange thing. It's part of his outfit, and it just goes all the way back to his neck and covers the back. And I thought, okay, that's a way to cover it. But I was really puzzled when I saw the action figure. I was like, okay, so is this guy's head? Can I take the mask off the figure? But no, I couldn't.
See, that's interesting that you bring that up, because I also have an action figure of him, and it must be from like a different line, because his head actually comes, like, not the head, but the mask comes off, and it's got the mask in like the whole back of it goes over top the entire head. So like his head's covered, but it's just this weird like black kind of like plastic that's just.
Are you
over
talking
top of
about
the
Jumbo figure one where he actually has
like
that?
Yeah, he's got
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's got like a weird.
It was like the 2001 like as Equity Toys series they came out with. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about. Like it's actually just like pop. Yeah, I got it.
It's weird. It doesn't make sense. But...
Yeah.
I'll try to find a picture of the witch doctor action figure that I was talking about. I get what the one that you're talking about. I think also that one when you take the mask off, it's actually the person from the episode, Mr. Sims. I think at least it resembles him. Hang on a minute.
Yeah, I have the one that Alex has, where it's just like the regular villain figure.
Okay.
I was gonna try and reach for it, and then I realized that like I'm covered in a fur blanket here because it's like 2 degrees above freezing.
Here,
and it's
can I grab it real quick, Nikki? Is it unprofessional to hop off the camera?
Get out of here.
Get it. Just go.
Get it. No.
Okay, Devin, are you talking about this one, right?
Yes, exactly that one. Yes. The back of it is like a weird.
The one I was talking about, and the one Wendy I think has too, is this one.
Yeah.
Are we talking about this one right here?
Yeah. Cam's got it.
Yeah. So
that's what Devin has. Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, and then but I see what you mean. Like the back doesn't show it, but like I don't know. Like there was one, I forget which one it was, but like it actually shows where it's like it actually shows his ears and where I know what you mean, Alex, and it's like a string hold.
Alex,
It's like
is it
a map.
Yes, that one.
Can you show us the back, because I found a picture of the back, but it's not very clear. Yep. Look at it. It does look like the mask can come off, and it's funny because I just saw a picture. Hang on, can I find it again? Okay, someone actually went ahead and took the mask off this particular figure, and this is what it's under it.
Oh, that's
God. No.
Wait,
it has no face.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So for those of you that are listening to the podcast, we are looking at figures, and this figure, when you take its mask off, it has no face.
Yeah.
Sorry to the audio listeners. Yes. I was gonna ask too. I guess I was gonna ask what your favorite villain is, but I guess a better question would be, what villain would you like to see be made into like a quality action figure? I have no idea. I didn't think about it ahead of time. But I just
Yeah, I know which one.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
It would be the Witch of Salem from To Switch a Witch, because that is my number one favorite Scooby-Doo episode of all time. And I feel like her outfit is very simple, but if you were going to like I would love to see her as like a full Barbie doll with like detailing and stuff, because I think that you could take a plain purple dress and hat with that green hair and just make it into something amazing. Like I really think that has potential. And like I say, it's my favorite episode, so of course I would love to see something from that.
I actually think that the Space Cook would make a good action figure, mostly because of his helmet. Because actually, it's just his helmet, and there's a skull inside it. But I would like to see if they could, make the helmet out of glass or something, or not glass, because then it would break. But if they could make it in some way where it's transparent and you can actually see the skull inside it, and it's not, just a globe with a skull painted on it from, all sides. I think it will be great.
See, I'm glad you brought that up too, because a couple weeks ago I was at Goodwill and I found this like giant Buzz Lightyear action figure, and I was like, you could so easily try to turn this into the Space Coop. So I bought it. I don't have a lot of time right now because I have like orders and stuff, because like that's what I do full time is make art and stuff. But when I have time, I'm gonna deconstruct this and turn it into the Space Coop somehow, because it literally almost looks exactly like it. It's got the same exact style. So I'm gonna definitely try to turn that into that at some point. So
you should do
that would be awesome.
Yeah.
You should do on your Instagram, Devin, where you like take us through the process of like you know what I mean, like disassembling them. That would be really cool to see.
I would definitely love to do that. I think it'd be cool too. I don't know how I do it because I'm not good at electronic stuff, but it'd be cool to have the head be able to like light up somehow. You know what I mean? Like this bowl. That'd be really cool. I don't know how, but LEDs of some sort, who knows? But I think that'd be really cool to make happen. But definitely sometime, hopefully soon, I definitely want to make that happen. But I was thinking about it, and an action figure that I would like to see would be I know I already brought it up, would be Chickenstein from the live action movie as an action figure would be really cool, because I just really like the Frankenstein chicken design. I think is a really neat like combo. So I think that'd be really cool to see.
I would like to have a really good Black Knight figure.
Yeah.
I feel like there's not, I mean, there's what, the Lego or Playmobil or whatever, but a really good Black Knight would be awesome.
I think they
did do this
have
one. It's
a
not.
Black Knight. Yeah,
Not
that's the one I was talking about.
But it's nothing special either.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. I don't really those like that line of toys, like that set. I feel like they almost feel like they almost nailed it, but they just didn't quite hit the mark with them. And I feel like the one that Cameron has too with the Tiki, and I have like a Charlie the Robot one that came with like a mirror and like a magnet.
Yeah.
I feel like they did those ones really well, but they didn't make a lot of them of like the villains. And I wish they would make more that were like that quality.
I think would be cool figure would be the Tar Monster. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just thought the Tar Monster was a cool. They did this like I have all of them, but they did like these little freeze frame picture boxes where it's like a figure Scooby and Shaggy, and it's kind of like a TV kind of looking thing, and it has the Tar Monster coming out of it, and like I have it. It's up in my collection, but yeah, but it just was never a really good. I don't know. Like to me, like some of the Scooby-Doo show. Like, even we talked about Gramps the Vamp, that would be a cool figure to have. You know what I mean? Like some of the older, you know, I will say that Figures Toy Company, I just did a giveaway with them, and Alex, I know you're doing a giveaway with them too, but they've actually, I mean, for making the dolls, they've actually done some good designs, and I don't know what it was. There's a toy fair that was a year ago, and they were supposed to make, I think Mezco Toys was supposed to release some Scooby-Doo ones. Nikki, I know you posted about it too. I did as well, but I haven't seen the line released. But they were gonna make some like I know it's like the Phantom Shadows and Space Kook, and you can actually see the designs of the action figures, and oh my god, like the detail and how real they look. It is amazing, and I hope if they release those lines, I'm gonna go bankrupt. I'm already bankrupt with all the Scooby-Doo stuff I bought like recently. Like the big statue and everything I bought, like I'm already bankrupt, but like, come on, like I don't know. I would want to buy that whole series, like if they released it.
They are really nice. They're really nice design. I recently emailed them about it, and their response was just keep an eye on our newsletter and on our social media. So they wouldn't tell me if or when they were being released.
Oh, I hate when they do that.
I know.
I think that's that. Don't mean to be a downer, but I think that sounds like a very polite no.
I thought the same thing.
Polite no, but stick around because we have so much other stuff that you won't be interested in.
Yeah, I thought the same thing when they said that, and you know, it's too bad that they didn't release them, because I think the designs came out in 2019, and for whatever reason they just haven't done them yet, but they were really nice.
Oh man, I really want to see better action figures. I just want to see more so bad. I love collecting like action figures because there's something cool about like being able to like hold something from like a movie or a show in your hand, and you're like, this is it. You know what I mean? And like the villains are the best part of Scooby-Doo. Like I know there's like a million things of like Scooby and Shaggy and the gang and stuff, but it's like the villains are always my favorite part, and I just like I want to see more merchandise of them. You know what I mean? And like some of the ones that don't get love, it's always like kind of the same ones. You know. The
one thing I will say I respect the most is like the Funko figures. You know, they did the series like, and they're right behind me. Like you got the Creeper and you know, the Ghost Clown and Space Kook. You know, I am happy they did those. I don't like how they did the limited edition ones where they do the Funko shop. And like you have to go on, like, oh my god, like those frustrate me so bad, because like I remember getting the werewolf, but I missed, you know, Captain Cutler. I had to go online on eBay, and God bless whoever, like, oh, I just was so angry. I was like, why are you selling this at such a high price?
For real.
But, you know, I think it would be cool to see Funko kind of do the rest of the Where Are You villains, because they've already done most of them, you know. Yeah, but like to do like I don't know why, but please Funko, whoever like is with Funko, if you're watching this, like I want a Charlie the Haunted Robot Funko
Yeah.
so bad. He's my favorite. Where are you?
Mhm.
You know, and I think it would be so cool to get one of those and to complete. And I don't know what it is, but I would love for them to see like complete the Where Are You, because like for some reason Funko has done like, you mean, you look at Funko doing Star Wars, right? They like complete collections. You know what I mean? Like they complete like all the characters, and I'm like, what are you waiting for on Scooby-Doo? Like I know like they like a couple nights ago they released a box lunch one that's coming out where Scooby-Doo holding a sign that says Ruh-Roh.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to get that one. But like, come on, let's finish these, you know, because I love Scooby-Doo and the gang so much. They're my favorite, but like, I feel like the villains are just so nostalgic. Like, you know what I mean? Like they needed some appreciation, and like a Funko Mystery Machine too. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And a
that'd be
Scooby,
cool.
and this is for Wendy, a Scooby-Doo Funko, and I'm off my
Thank you.
soapbox.
I love that.
Oh my gosh.
They do need to have a Scooby-Doo. And
Anything.
you know, I don't know if I would want them to do the villains as the soda figures or as just a regular pop figure, because I think it would depend on which one it is as to which one I think it would look better as. Like the Black Knight, I think would look better as the soda figure and not a
Agreed.
regular pop figure.
Yeah, I get
I
that.
could see that. I could
I
see
think it's
that.
because the head is supposed to be large, so, and you know, the big eyes. So if you do the Black Knight, it doesn't really have eyes, so you can't
True.
bring it out and make them big, you know. So yeah, I think it would look better as a soda pop figure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And actually, what Cameron said about the villains being very nostalgic, I really agree with that. I think it's because, you know, you have all these different versions of the gang in Funko Pop figures, in action figures, and all that. But you know the gang, they appear in every single Scooby production, but the villains, they literally only appear once in like ever, and that's what makes them so nostalgic. Because you see this, for example, the Space Queen. You see the Space Queen, like, oh yeah, it's the Space Queen from that episode where they did blah 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 blah. If you see Shaggy, it's just Shaggy. He appears every single time. He does a bunch of different things. But the Space Cook, he only appeared once. He did some very specific things, and it only happened once. I think that's what makes them nostalgic.
Totally agree with that. I on the topic of like the toys and stuff too, I don't know what, like, because you're saying they should complete the, like Cameron, you're saying they should complete the Funko line.
Yeah.
I think the thing that would make most sense too to complete would be like, I love the masks. I don't remember what the company is that's been coming out with the mask. Trick or Treat Studios.
Trick or Treat Studios. Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got the masks. The villains from Scooby-Doo are literally wearing masks. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
They should have a whole line of all the Where Are You villains, just masks. They could even be the cheap ones. It doesn't have to be the full head. Just like, it would make total sense, because that's like their whole thing is masks. You know what I mean? Like it would make total sense to put out a line of those. So I don't know why they haven't done that yet. Like it would make total sense. So.
And some of the cheaper ones look better than the more expensive ones.
True.
Yeah.
True. I agree with that.
But you know, also too, I mean, we're talking about the villains, but even and he doesn't get talked about a lot, but Yabba-Doo, you know, I guess I love Yabba-Doo a lot from you know the Scrappy-Doo show where Yabba and Dusty, I think I'm hopefully saying his name right, where they teamed up with Scrappy in those episodes, and then like there's Whoopsie-Doo and Scooby-Dee. And you know, I'm happy we got a Scrappy-Doo and Scooby-Dum Funko, but I'm like, where can we not get a Yabba-Doo and a Scooby-Dee? Like, and I know they don't get talked a lot, you know, about, but like, oh my God, they were just so cool to me. Like, it was cool to see like Scooby-Doo's family and like different variations, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't know, I feel like there's a lot that Funko is still missing out on. Like, I'm a big Hanna-Barbera fan. Like, I'm still wanting a Speed Buggy Funko and like Tinker and like Mark and Debbie. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm over here just like, please give me this. Why can't I have it yet?
I mean, maybe you're not too far off, because like they just released a bunch of Cartoon Network ones, right? Like Courage and Johnny Bravo, and
and they're supposed to release more Monday, from what I'm hearing.
Okay.
I'm fingers crossed it's more Hanna-Barbera. So,
Same.
Yeah.
Cool. That's cool. I have like questions, because like I never get to talk about Scooby with anyone, so it's nice to be able to be here with you guys talking about Scooby-Doo stuff. So I just have like questions. I'm gonna ask you guys about them. So I was thinking about like, they reuse a lot. Like we talked about mainly like clowns. Like there's been a clown in probably every single Scooby-Doo series, and I can't think of one that hasn't had one. Yeah, I would say that every series has probably had a clown. what's like some villains that like haven't been in anything? Like I was thinking that it'd be cool if they did like, because like, you know, it's always nice to like redo a show, because like Mystery Inc., like Mystery Incorporated did really well, and then Be Cool, I personally liked it, but I feel like it got a lot of like backlash, but they kind of returned to form in a way with Guess Who. I'd like to see them go on a different limb where the series is based off of like something specific. Like my first thought was like cryptozoology, which is like Bigfoot and like Mothman and like Loch Ness Monster. And like it'd be cool to have a whole series where it's just a gang going around like the US or whatever. And it's like all those types of monsters where they're like inspecting like that, like the crypto ones. And then I also thought about, it'd be interesting if it was like a short series where it was just like all like universal monsters and the whole series was like black and white or something. Would be kind of funny. That just came to mind when we were talking about it, but
That's pretty cool.
Just
That
just a
actually
thought.
would be really cool to have a Scooby series in all black and white.
Right? Wouldn't that be kind of cool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You know,
that was
This
just my
is
thought.
very
Like,
nostalgic vibe to it. I think would be great.
yeah,
We,
okay, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Is there any other villains that like they haven't faced? Because it seems like they rehash things a lot, and it's like there's something they could come up with that they haven't done. You know what I mean? Yeah, and it's just like, why haven't they? Stop reusing the same ones. You know what I mean?
I will say, Devin, I think they've really touched on everything. I mean, really, I mean, you think about it, because I mean, I feel like, and I don't mean this mean against Warner Brothers and like the writers for Scooby-Doo, because I feel like they do a great job, even if they rehash. But I feel like they just like they recycle a lot of like the ideas for villains. You know what I mean? Like we get a zombie, okay. We get a werewolf, okay. We get a demon, cool. We get a space alien, okay. We get a a creature from the from the lake, or you know what I mean? Like I feel like it's always recycled. But I will say though, like, and he's a friend of all of ours, but Bradford, he writes a lot of scripts and he puts them out, and I really do hope Warner Brothers picks up, because like he released one and I thought it was cool, and it's so simple we could all think about it, but instead of it being Scooby-Doo where are you, it's Scooby-Doo when are you, and it's like Scooby-Doo going throughout time, and I thought that was pretty cool. And like maybe Scooby-Doo face off against like some of like the myths and legends of like real life, like the Goat Man, or like different like ones, like that would be really cool to see, or like you said, like a black and white one. But
yeah,
but like to answer your question though, I feel like they've done everything, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else they can do at this point.
After 50 years, you know what I mean? In some
I know. It's like
how many ideas?
I hope and pray Scooby's around for 50 more years, but they better get their butts in gear and start thinking outside the box. Like, what are we gonna do?
Seriously, because it's like they almost take like sometimes it's like, oh well, they could just take like a random like worker, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, an ice cream man or something, but they've already done like ice cream centered episodes and stuff like that too. You know what I mean? It's like you could just take any profession and be like, well, what if we threw them into this? But it almost seems like they've done that already. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
You're like a chef, and it's like, well, they've done that, and it's like, what have they not done? What haven't they done?
Yes, exactly.
Everything. They've done it all.
It's pretty hard to come up with very, very, very original ideas after 52 years of Scooby. I mean, yeah, it's like you said, even if you take a profession or something and you throw it in, it's probably already been done at least once.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I like the universal monster idea now. I think that a black and white like series, like kind of limited, would be really cool to see, old timey, and kind of have that like classic, like kind of campy style to it. I think would be kind of cool too. So
imagine that in full screen format, not the widescreen that's popular now. Imagine that in full screen format. That will make it so much more vintage.
I would love that. I would love that.
Sorry, Nikki, you were saying?
What if they did horror villains? Somebody did fan art with a lot of the horror villains, but they haven't done any type of series like that. That could be kind of cool.
Yeah, I've thought about that too, but I feel like that would be straying too far for Warner Brothers almost, because it's too scary. You know what I mean?
I mean, I like what you mean, because like one of my favorite like horror movies is Jeepers Creepers. You know what I mean? I always loved. I mean, but at the same time, like it's about death and him killing and him feeding, and it's like I don't think Scooby-Doo goes real well. I'll be honest with y'all, I have never, and people may be like, oh my god, Cameron, you need to, but like Scooby-Doo Apocalypse, I've just never really read the comic book series, and I don't own any of them because to me, it's just, and y'all know this about me. If you watch the earlier panels from like I very first started, like I'm not that big on like Scooby-Doo being like death and dark and you know, cussing and, you know, guns, you know, all that thrown in there with Scooby-Doo. I'm just not big on that. But I do see what you mean, Nikki. That would be kind of cool for them to kind of take maybe kind of a route like into the horror movies, but maybe it not being so dark. Like I could see that working out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have them killing anybody, but you know, just kind of figuring out a way to bring it down so that, you know, they can incorporate the horror villains, but not make it horror. So.
Yeah, just use like the costumes or whatever of the horror villain.
Yeah.
Like Scream is perfect because Matthew Lillard was in that. It would just, it makes sense. It would tie it all together.
You know what I would really love to see them do is kind of revisit Laugh Olympics. I feel like Laugh Olympics was just such an amazing series. I loved it. I grew up on Laugh Olympics. I actually owned all the VHS of the Laugh Olympics. I don't know, like to me that was just such a fun series. I think it would be cool for them to kind of venture back into that, maybe like make a Laugh Olympics series, and also to maybe make a Hex Girl series where the Hex Girls are the stars of the show, because everybody loves the Hex Girls. I'm starting to see more and more Hex Girls merch. I don't know. I feel like instead of them trying to maybe think of like different villains so much, maybe they can kind of take different routes, because I feel like there's a lot of untapped potential in Scooby-Doo, and I don't know if people agree with me on that or not. Like, for example, Scooby-Dum, like today's his birthday, and I posted about his birthday, and I got to thinking about it. I was like, you know, Scooby-Dum really hasn't appeared a lot. And maybe I hope that they do like a Scooby-Doo family reunion movie. That would be really cool to see, cool. You know, or heck, I don't know. Maybe then like, I would love to see Scooby-Doo team up with Johnny Quest. Like Johnny Quest is another favorite of my Hanna-Barbera, you know? And so like, I mean, there's so many things that they can do. Like there's so many team ups they can do. There's so many like things they can go back and revisit. Like maybe like and I'm fingers crossed, because we know that when they try to go back to sequels of the movie, it has not been pretty with like, and I'm not hinting, you guys know what I'm talking about, but like, I don't know, maybe like do it where the Ghoul School, where, you know, the girls from the Ghoul School, they grew up and they need Shaggy and Scooby to come back and help them, you know, like, you know, come back to the school, and, you know, Scrappy, I don't know, but there's so many things that like in the Scooby-Doo franchise you could do. Whereas so much not having to think of a new villain, just kind of bring it where the villain's been there. You know what I mean? Use the same villain, but kind of do a new plot, new story. You know what I mean?
You know, that's kind of interesting too. I just had two ideas because you brought the Laugh Olympics thing, and it reminded me of like other like Hanna-Barbera and characters and stuff. And they could do like a Guess Who style thing where instead of like a celebrity guest, they could bring in like another Warner Brothers like property into the episode just for like a crossover type thing. I already forgot the second idea.
Scooby-Doo and the Snorks. I would like them to cross over with the Snorks.
Oh, you know what? You were talking about the Snorks today on Twitter. I remember them. They were kind of like the Smurfs. They were cute. Like they were little people underwater, right?
Yeah.
They had the weird little.
Okay. I'm glad.
Actually, Frank Welker did the voice of Tudor. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Even though he didn't actually talk, he just tooted. But yeah.
Frank
Welker's great at doing, you know, the sound effects, everything.
Yeah.
I think another series, they'd have to do it really well, because like on the same topic of like redoing movies like Return to Zombie Island and 13 Ghosts and stuff, they kind of messed those up. They'd have to do it really well. But an interesting series would be, and I'm going to emphasize this again, they'd have to do it really well, because if they took Where Are You and did it where it was like Scooby-Doo from the villain's point of view, and it was just like the exact same episodes of Where Are You, but all from like the villain's point of view of like putting on the costume.
Oh,
and, like,
that would be cool.
And they like see the gang and stuff, and it's like, what? He's like, I'm just trying to find my treasure or whatever. Why are you here? You know what I mean? But they have to do it well and not mess it up, and that's what I would be nervous about.
That would be actually very, very interesting to see, because if you, I think everybody has seen Scooby-Doo Where Are You, like every Scooby fan has seen this show. So when, for example, you see, I don't know, the Ghost Clown episode. So you know it's Harry the Hypnotist, for example. So you don't actually you wouldn't start that episode thinking, okay, so who's the ghost clown? You would actually think like, okay, so it's hired him that he's dressing up as the ghost clown. What's gonna happen that's gonna turn his plans around? And he's gonna get caught.
Exactly. And the game's just kind of like a background. Like they're almost not the center of it. It's like focused on the villains mainly, and they're just kind of like there. You know what I mean? Like he's like peeking behind the tents and stuff, and he's like they're messing it up. They're messing it up for me right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like I think that'd be really cool to see that happen. There's so many possibilities.
Yeah, you talking about like I don't know, all of us talking about like the vintage Scooby-Doo today, like it makes me miss the old boomerang. Do y'all remember the old boomerang?
Yes.
Oh my God. And Alex, Wendy, I don't know if y'all remember the old boomerang, but if you go on YouTube and Wendy, you may, I don't know, Alex, if you got it in over there, but like they used to have the old boomerang like really cater to the old Hanna-Barbera. And oh my God, it was just so amazing. Like I remember they did like specials and like Thanksgiving specials and like Christmas specials. And then like, I remember they crowned like some of the cartoon characters, like Scrappy-Doo was King of the Month. And so like every day, like they would play like a special tribute to Scrappy, you know, like it was so cool how they did it. And I just feel like now, like the new boomerang and like how they do it now, like they just cater like, you know what I mean? Like to mainly Tom and Jerry and the Looney Tunes, and nothing against Tom and Jerry and Looney Tunes, but I'm just like, man, you start exploring like the old, and we talk about it all the time. I know me, Wendy, and Nikki, like it's like beating a dead horse the way we talk about it, but like the old Hanna-Barbera, like the rainbow, like, you know, like when that rainbow came around that circle, like you knew it was going to be good. And I don't know, I just feel like, man, I don't know. I feel like there's so much they can do with Hanna-Barbera. I'm not mentioning Jellystone. I'm not going to go down that route. I'm not going to. I will not talk about it. I have nothing nice to say, Cameron. Don't say anything at all.
I haven't seen it yet. I won't ask. Apparently it's not but I haven't seen it yet, so. Yeah,
I've only seen the trailer and I will not watch more. Someone messaged me and was like, hey, Scooby and Cam, have you watched Jellystone? I'm like, no, please don't talk to me about it. We can talk about anything else in the world you want to, except for that series.
All right, guys, so we're gonna wrap this up. And before we do, I would like you guys to let everyone know where they can find you on social media. So Cameron, let's start with you.
Yeah, for sure. So guys, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Scooby-Doo and Cameron Too. And you can also find me on my new YouTube channel at Scooby-Doo and Cameron Too as well.
Alex?
You can find me all on Instagram at Scooby_news and on Twitter at Scooby_news16.
Wendy?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm at Wendy BRYDGE, Twitter at Wendy Loves Jesus, and my blog is wendylovesjesus.wordpress.com.
Devin?
You can find me mainly on Instagram is what I use the most, and that's at awesome__thanks. And it's the same on Twitter. I don't use that as much, but I'm also on Facebook. You can just look up Awesome Thanks. I'm also on YouTube. And I have an Etsy shop called Awesome Thanks Minis if you want to check out anything that I make.
And I'm Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com. You can find all of my links on my website. Thank you so much for joining us for another Scooby panel, and have a happy and safe Halloween. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
Halloween.
Thank you.
Bye.
Happy Halloween.
Thank you for tuning in to another Scooby panel. I'm Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com. If you like these panels, please subscribe to my channel for more great discussions. A very special thank you to Alex from Scooby News, miniature artist Devin Smith, artist, blogger, and Scooby collector Wendy BRYDGE, and Cameron Bates from Scooby-Doo and Cameron Too. Scooby and Shaggy were voiced by Scott Innes. Check out Scott's website, onescottshop.com. Scooby Panel is available in podcast form on most podcast platforms, or as a web series on YouTube. If you would like to support the Scooby Panel, please go to support.scoobbyaddicts.com. Scooby Addicts art by Will Davenport, video editing by Nikki Blake, music composed and performed by Bovine Nightmares. Please join us next time for our discussion on the episode title cards.
I was gonna ask too. My one of my other questions was, what are your thoughts on like Scooby-Doo just started with like a night, basically like. I don't even know how to phrase it, but just like, okay, so it started with a night, and then how far we've come with like all these weird monsters and stuff. Like, what are your thoughts on that starting point? Like, do you think there would have been a better like monster to start with, or is it just like, okay, just like a knight in a knight shining armor outfit, whatever, you know? like you know what I mean?
I like that they started with a knight because like I love castles and knights, anything that has to do with a castle, dragons, like I love that stuff. So to me, starting with a knight was perfect.
I also like it, just for FYI.
I thought it was a pretty unconventional way to start. Personally, okay, I may get a little criticism about this. But okay, What a Night for Night is not among my most favorite episode. Of course, I like it because it's the first one and it's it's a great episode overall. But it's just not among my favorites because Scooby-Doo Where Are You has definitely much stronger episodes. But as an opener, I think it was a pretty unconventional villain. Like maybe they could have gone for a universal monster or something like a vampire or a werewolf. But at the same time, I think that audiences back then could have tuned for the next episode because okay, when you see okay, today there's gonna be a new cartoon about a gang of teenagers and a talking dog, and they're gonna hunt down ghosts and monsters, and you say okay, well they're gonna go for a classic ghost with a sheet or a werewolf or a vampire, and you tune in for the first episode and it's a walking suit of armor. That's kind of original. So maybe it wasn't all that bad to start with the Black Knight.
I think too, it like the Black Knight. Like you said, it's original, so I think that's a good idea. And also, I think it would have worked too, like you said, like any of the Universal monsters. But like, I feel like it wouldn't have worked as well if they started with like a monster that they made up, like the Creeper or the Spooky Space Coop or like something like that. I feel like that wouldn't have worked as well. Because you kind of have to start with something that's like, okay, it's a knight. It's so general that people know what it is. And then they went for like a ghost. And then they kind of started like doing more like, okay, these are like random things that we're kind of making up, once people get the like vibe of the show. So yeah, I think that was a good start, personally.
The one thing I didn't like about the very first Scooby-Doo episode, What a Night for Night, is the laugh track. Like people laughing at everything Scooby and Shaggy were doing. Like, and then like, I'm so glad they cut that for like the rest of the Scooby-Doo Where Are You episodes, because I was like, God, that annoys me so much because it's fake laughing. Like it's the same laugh track over and over again. I'm like, oh my God, like I hate it so much. But I'm glad they cut it for the other episodes.
I don't think they really cut it though. I think every episode had a laugh track, like up until the first season of Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo. I think there was a laugh track, but okay, yeah, in the first episode it was a very it came up very often, like okay, it didn't happen like that, but Scooby would turn around with a puzzle look and haha, laugh track. Shaggy would say one word, laugh track. Okay, it was kind of weird, let's say, but I think the rest of the episodes up until the Scooby-Doo Scrappy-Doo show, I think they used it in moderation. I didn't really mind it that much.
Well,
because it was the style of the era for.
Well, and I see what you mean, but I feel like for some like the Where Are You episodes, I feel like they've showed that, and then I feel like they've revised the episodes because like you watch them on DVD, sometimes they won't have the laugh track, you know what I mean? But then when you watch them on TV, maybe they will. So I feel like sometimes they're just probably edited. I see what you mean, Alex, because I feel like sometimes they're edited, revised. Like I was talking about like the Gramps the Vamp episode, like it was dark, it was darker than it was supposed to be, but then like I feel like they revised or re-edited it because it was a little too dark. You know what I mean?
Wendy, would you have started with a different villain for the first episode?
No, I think they did a really great job. Like for
guys,
one
excuse me
thing,
for a sec.
it was like an original thing. I think it was something that people were not expecting, which I think gave them a lot of leeway with where they could go with it. They didn't box themselves in right at the start with like a stereotypical vampire or a Frankenstein monster or whatever. But I think it also worked good because it, not that it would be easy, but I think it was more plausible. that a guy could get into a suit of armor and wander around a museum.
True. Instead of making his own costume.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even just the setting of it, you know, like the entire setup for that story, I feel like is reasonably plausible. And I think that was a really great way to start the show, because again, you're not limiting yourself. You're just kind of easing into it, but you've got some originality, you know, it's plausible, and then you can build on that however you want. So yeah, I think that was definitely the right episode to start with. I can't imagine any of the other episodes being quite as like hitting that nail on the head as that one was for your very first introduction to the world.
I also like the museum setting. I feel like was a good, like, museums, like, I've had like reoccurring nightmares about being in a museum. Like, and I'm like, I can't get out of this museum. I'm like, and now I'm thinking, is that because of Scooby-Doo? Like, something about it is like kind of like Night at the Museum. Like, if Night at the Museum was a horror movie, that's like that. You know what I mean? Like, where it's like all this stuff could like just come to life, but it's scary. That's a scary thought. You know what I mean? Being surrounded by a bunch of old stuff that's like, you know, I don't know. It's a scary thought. I think that was a good choice for a first episode, honestly. Yeah. Instead of just like a haunted house.
Imagine if we started off with a pup named Scooby-Doo. Do you really think that the show would have lasted 52 years? I don't think it would have.
I really don't.
No,
Definitely
not really.
No. Sorry.
No.
It was just way too silly, and I don't think that adults would stick around for it. I mean, I think adults can enjoy Where Are You for some part, because, you know, it's funny, but it's not entirely kid funny. You know, adults can enjoy the comedy too. But I think Pup Named was very kid targeted.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And it would be kind of weird to, you know, start a franchise, let's say, with these characters that are kids, and then they grow up. I think it would be like they're making the franchise different. It's a whole other thing to start as adult or teenagers, let's say, and then make them adults, make them kids, make them teenagers again. That's just, you know, switching the formula around.
Wendy, I'm sorry I cut you off. What were you gonna say?
Oh, that's okay. All I was gonna say was, like, I for one would love to be locked in a museum by myself. So I'm just gonna say that.
That's true. I would too, but I would be scared. I would definitely be scared.